Blog Talk Radio.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
George Bush has invoked a new world order without enunciating a new American purpose.
Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order, and instead it looks like we got a lot of disorder.
Today we take an essential step in defeating terrorism while protecting the constitutional rights of all Americans. Preventing mass terror will be the responsibilities of presidents far into the future.
The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. These are not simply words written into aging parchment. They are the foundation of liberty and justice in this country.
This is an ideological battle. Some people believe in globalism, others of us believe in national sovereignty. It's a contest between ideologies, whether we believe in our institutions here, our national sovereignty, our Constitution, or are we going to further move in the direction of international government? It's just knowledge is out there. If we look for it, you'll realize that our national sovereignty is under threat.
All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
All right, Joseph Gibson here, podcasting, understanding the times in which we live today. Be with you momentarily here. We're going to be podcasting here. We're going to be having a simulcast discussion here with Liberal Dan here tonight. So I'm not sure if we got our time mixed up here, our time here. It may have been starting at 8:30 for him. I may have goofed up here and started at 7:30, but that's okay. The show will go on, and we will have our liberal discussion here. So everyone's just going to be patient. And I'm trying to get in touch with him now, but it might be going on at 8:30. So that's only about 45 minutes away. So, but just hang in tight.
The
But we are making a stand, and we're waking everybody up that 9/11 was an inside job. And you are the minority. You are the cowards who don't know the truth. You're the people that serve this evil system. You're the people that serve a system that hurts innocent men, women, and children, not just Iraqis, not just Afghans, not just Africans, but the people right here in this nation. You serve a new world order that attacks and feeds on you. And I'm here to tell you that you will be defeated. Your hours are numbered. We've got the energy. We've got the life force. All you've got is evil backing you up. All you've got is greed and liking to look at yourself in the mirror. Because deep down, the New World Order is a pot-bellied, chicken-neck ninny. And all the armor and all the weapons are nothing. You are nothing compared to good. You are nothing compared to life. And you will be defeated. I want the individuals out there, I want free humanity to turn themselves loose, to cut the chains loose, and to use the end of that chain to slap the New World Order right upside the head. You've got the power. You want to know who's going to defeat the New World Order? It is you. You're the individuals that are going to be able to defeat this system. You're the individuals that are going to be able to take down the New World Order. It doesn't matter if Ron Paul wins. It doesn't matter if they rig the election. What matters is that we're starting to stand up. We're starting to move. We're starting to find our legs. We're starting to build our muscle. We're starting to realize that we do have power, and we can work together, and we can take action, and that the naysayers are a pack of weak liars who have never had any successes in their life and who are upset and frustrated to see us beginning to have victories against tyranny. They don't have any respect for themselves. They don't have any vision, and they don't have any will. And they sure don't have any of the power that shines out of God's soul and energizes all life in the universe. They have wed themselves to death, and they will crumble, and they will fall, and for eternity we wed ourselves to life, and to everything good, and everything that flows from it.
All right, Joseph Gibson here, podcasting, understanding the times in which we live today, restoring our republic. Again, I'm waiting for Liberal Dan here. I don't know if he's simulcasting or not. I'm checking the blog. He also does a podcast here. I believe he sent the email, and it was going to be 8:30 on his side. I believe that's what it was going to be, and it was 7:30 my side. So I'm not 100% sure on that. Let's see here. I'm trying to check and see if he's on there now or not. I don't think he is. Liberal Dan. Let me see if I can find him on here on the Blog Talk, because he does do a Blog Talk too. But he's got YouTube going, and he's got a bunch of followers there. Liberal Dan. Let's see here. Liberal Dan. The Liberal Dan. All right, here we go. Let's see. Liberal Dan. Let's see where you at here, buddy. A discussion with. There he is, right there. Yep. Okay, 81 minutes. Yeah, we are live. He's live. Okay, he's got his show up and going. So I'm going to see if I can call into his show here. Liberal Dan. He doesn't have a phone number. He doesn't have his phone number up and running. He doesn't have a phone number for his show. Let me check my board. Maybe he's trying to call in my board and see if he's trying to get into my board here. Liberal Dan, where are you? Liberal Dan, where the heck are you? I mean, 657-383-0616, Liberal Dan. We are simulcasting here right now. We are. His show is up and going. So let me see if I can click onto his show here and see what's going on. Let me see if I can. Okay, there's his show right there. Okay, so let me see if I can call into his show here. And I said I was going to call into his show. I didn't have his number to his show. Okay, so we're going to do this. Okay, Liberal Dan here. Hang on. Let me write down his number here. And I will call his show, 803-803. And we got quite a crowd here on my platform here listening right now. So Okay, there's his number right there. Let me call his show right there. Okay, now here we go. We're going to call his show right now. Okay, call. All right. Okay, let's see here. 914. And it's live internet radio. He's not on YouTube. Usually he does. He's on YouTube already. 31. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Let's give him a call and see what we got going on here.
Blog Talk Radio. Your show is scheduled to start in 1 hour, 19 minutes.
Oh.
Please call back within 15 minutes of scheduled show time.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Oh, so he hasn't started yet. Is that something or what? That's not. December 24th, Liberal Dan is discussing liberal. Okay, so he's going to start at 8:30. Okay, 8:30. Simulcast Little Dan. Say okay. All right. Okay. So he's got 1 hour and 15 minutes to go before he starts his show. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I won't be simulcasting with him until for about another hour. So Liberal Dan. All right. YouTube. All right. You'll be on YouTube. Okay. All right. All right. So, well, folks, that's miscommunication. He did say 8:30. I should have stuck with 8. I had originally put it 8:30, and I switched it to 7:30, so I shouldn't have done that. So I got something I can play for you for a little while here anyway while we wait 73 minutes until show. Okay, so all right. So, okay, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Liberal Dan, that's fine. I'll just play a little something here for my listeners until then. We got an hour to go, and then we'll be simulcasting, okay, with Liberal Dan.
At a time in history, the United States government is mired in so many wars against so many foreign nations, and there's plenty of precedents for this. Now, going back to the beginning, the United States fought the American Revolution primarily over King George III's Currency Act, which forced the colonists to abandon their own government-issued currencies and conduct business only using printed banknotes borrowed at interest from the Bank of England. If you go back to the writings of Ben Franklin, direct quote, the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. That's Ben Franklin. Now, our public schools don't teach that because you're not supposed to know that the bankers were really behind the American Revolution. After the Revolution, the United States adopted a revolutionary, radically different economic...
Who I got here? 305. Who do I got?
Hey, Joe, it's Mike.
Oh, Mike, how you doing? Yeah, I got my hairs crossed up there for he's not going to be simulcasting with me until 8:30, so I've got 1 hour to kill here of airtime. So
oh, really?
Miscommunication. Yeah, it was a miscommunication. It was 8:30, like I switched it to 7:30 for some reason. Somebody sent me an email and had told me that, so I had to go back and reprogram everything. So I figured I'd just leave it at 7:30 and I'd play something on the bankers for a little while if I didn't get no callers. So but at least you're loyal. You were right. I had another crank caller on a second ago, but I hung up on him. So, so what's the word, Mike?
Oh no,
I got some extra airtime here. What's that?
I said I'm out taking my first walk in 2.5 years. Finally, getting back to my little bit of exercise and get the blood flowing. I live out in the boondocks, When in the farming area, it's called the Redlands. So I'm
really?
And it's dark, of course. And right now I'm on a corner about 3 miles from my house, and I was walking in the dark through all kinds of weeds and shit. And I turned on the light on my phone, and now I'm bending over, pulling stickers off my the cuff of my sweatpants.
You got alligators there?
There's some close by. They got plenty of alligators here in South Florida, man.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are you in alligator area there? Because I always hear these horror stories where if you break down on the road in Florida, you don't pull over because you can get eaten by an alligator,
Yeah, well, that could happen, and if you're in the wrong place. It wouldn't be that common. It's more folklore than anything else. I mean...
Oh, really?
In theory...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in theory, it could happen.
Okay, so you do have alligators down there.
Oh, yeah. Definitely got alligators all over the place down here.
Okay, so I'm glad I got you on the phone because I was thinking about you today. I was going there looking at the videos there you had up on Rumble and everything. So your militia platform pretty much fell apart then? Is that what's going on? Or is the assemblies gone? Is everything all done with? I mean, is it just like washed up and dried up, or how is it going to go? I watched the video and I couldn't get a clear picture of what you were trying to say here.
Yeah, well, not at all what you just suggested.
Okay.
To the contrary, I guess I could say it 2 or 3 different ways. On the one hand, as you know, I believe, if you watch my militia meeting 30, 38, 39, and 40 were like the last ones I did was expressing a lot of dissatisfaction over the lack of patriots that that have what it takes, that are sincere, that want to pull together and organize and unite.
Okay.
I don't know. It's the damnedest thing, to be honest with you. I just kind of beside myself on it. So yeah, it was a little discouraging, but it's probably a combination of things. On the one hand, disappointment and discouragement over the lack of American people who are really genuinely wanting to organize, unite, and organize with one another in a fashion that will make them strong and make them able to hold the corruption accountable. No, but there's not enough people that will stand up to want to do that, to unite and organize.
Well, you remember the Tea Party movement, right? You remember the Tea Party movement, right?
Yeah, controlled opposition movement, sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's still, though, but you had a lot of grassroots people out there that still became involved with it, and they still got together and believed in it. Okay, whether it was whether it was founded by evil intentions or bad intentions or whatnot, it doesn't matter. There were still a lot of good people that did do a lot of good things and brought a lot of attention. I believe the Federal Reserve got a lot of light, and a lot of people started getting educated on the Federal Reserve at that time also. So that's what I'm hinting to, is the only way you have people that you've contacted and then spoken with in video with in other states. What you have to do is get them, if they're really serious, and I think they are. I think one guy, your Texas guy, he wants to run for governor. I think we have to get political candidates to run into the de facto and do the same thing the de facto did to us. Okay? And the de facto, basically, what they did was they infiltrated our schools. They infiltrated our republic, took over our republic, and basically hijacked our way of our founding fathers' way of life that they wanted to try to implement through government and through belief and break away from the British Crown and be free over here. What they did was they came over here and they infiltrated it and they usurped that system, and now we're back under designed control again. We're being taxed. Our money is hijacked. It's controlled by central bankers, the Rothschilds. So they control everything. And so what we have to do is, instead of going to war and doing something crazy and spilling blood like the founders did, because they didn't have nothing to do back then anyway but pitchforks and farms, we're more sophisticated and more civilized. So what we have to use it could be paper pushing, but grassroots, getting out there and activism and getting involved and putting candidates in there that aren't going to sell out to the system, that aren't going to change as soon as they're elected or get bought off by special interest groups. They have to stay hardcore, stay true, righteous, and build your righteous army. Make sure they stay righteous. Make sure they stay smartly and want to overcome the district of criminals machine. You know what I mean? And you say local, well, start with your state legislators, your local mayors, your local sheriffs. Let's get candidates up and running. Put our little $100 bills together and our pennies and our quarters, and hopefully we'll get some big sponsors out there or people that want to see change. Maybe we'll get some rich billionaire who has a conscience who wants to fund us and start getting candidates elected into office. What do you think?
Well, as you know, just to go back to the first part of what you said, I've been harping all along that, my my efforts to organize we, the people who are the militia, therefore as the militia, was not one of gun in hand or violence. It was one of lawful, peaceful, open, transparent, organized, and essentially creating a new image and a new color, a new flavor for what the militia really is. It's not, what it was 200 years ago. Now it's simply about people organizing in their communities. I mean, they are the militia, but it's not about gun in hand. It's about pen in hand. It's about intelligence and smarts and articulating, lawfully, which brings up the whole issue of common law, constitutional law, U.S. codes that are in our favor, and then having the right people work together in mass, which is the second part of the equation that you were just referencing. I hate to sound like, the pessimist here. It's certainly been my experience for 6 months. There's not enough people in each community. Sure, there may be one or two, people like you and me in a few counties throughout some of the states, but it's going to take a hell of a lot more than that. It's going to take, when there is that person like you or me, there needs to be anywhere from 5 to 10 who essentially open up an office, a righteous army office, a militia office, a political social office. And that office is an official headquarters for that county for, the people that fit the bill of being considered, those who I would identify as being, conservative, Christians, patriots, truthers, believing in God,
we'd have to usurp the Republican platform. Let me interrupt you right there, Mike. We'd have to usurp the Republican platform because you're not going to go in there and do constitutional party. You're not going to go in there and be a libertarian because the two-party system has too much mind control over the paradigm way of thinking of the American people. You would have to go in there and infiltrate the Republican Party and run as a Republican and get in there, and you'd have to be like the new Republican Party, and not the conservatives. Not the faces of old are out. And then the people of new and the voices of new ideas and new ideas of freedom are in, and that's the message that would have to go. And that office, that was a good idea. And you start having offices pop up all over the country. You'd be surprised how many people would flock there, because you're wrong. You did have quite a following there on the videos. If you look at the number of views and watches, you go to Rumble, you got 100 here. You add all those up, you got thousands and thousands of views. That's all you need to start a grassroots campaign across this country. Even the evil dictators started out with a few. Look at Hitler; he started out with a few socialists there in the bar. Everybody can start off small. And by no means I'm not trying to compare our movement to Hitler. I'm just saying, I'm just using examples of people who could start, getting people together to meet and grow, and that's what I meant by that. So, and we will have to do and it's where we skip the sovereign stuff. I'm going to walk into court with a pen and paper and say I'm king and I'm going to govern myself. You will not be taken seriously. You will be laughed at, even if you are right, even if you will win some cases, and if cases get dismissed, you will not be taken seriously across the nation. You're an agitator and you're a terrorist according to the de facto. You have to go in and you have to do it right.
Right. However, those people you just referenced, sovereigns, they are the ones that are right, and therefore the more people that are that endeavor to create the new Republican Party, so to speak, the better, because those are the people that are in the right. The sovereigns, the common law movement.
Yes, I agree. But it has to be done. But you see, now you're going to face some opposition because some people, even in those meetings, if you're a part of the de facto, if you have any part of it whatsoever, I don't want no part of you. We heard that conversation. You can't. You have to keep your mind open. Look, the movement that has been going, or even what you've been doing, like you said, the lack of growth has been discouraging. Okay, it's not working. What do we got to do? We don't have time to keep beating the same dead horse. We got to try something new. Try something different. Keep adapting. Keep throwing different ideas and different solutions out there, or different ways to combat this new world order that they're throwing at us. We have to try these, and I believe that's a good way.
I disagree with that, Joe. I mean, I don't. At the risk of sounding arrogant or conceited, which I'm not, I know that by the grace of God, through inspiration, I put forth the ultimate and the only workable solution, which I kind of, elaborated on.
It is the only solution, but going about it and implementing it is what I'm talking about. You have to go about it a different way, and that's why I was saying getting candidates that will run on the de facto ticket, and then once in there, implement the common law, Article 3 courts, and then you could do it. You'll have the de facto stage, and you'll have their books and their keys to their buildings to do it, and they can't come after you then. They can't,
That won't work. That won't work. And let me explain why that will not work. Because while I like the idea of doing to them what they did to us, which is subversively infiltrating, i.e. going in as a de facto, politician, but then doing the other thing, no. They have total control over their people. They have control.
You mean to tell me if you had 1,000 Ron Pauls? You mean to tell me if you had 1,000 Ron Pauls that wanted to end the Fed across this country? If you had, I know you don't like Donald Trump and whatnot, but if you had if you had 1,000 Donald Trumps in public office that wanted to drain the swamp, you don't think it would gain traction and that we would be able to usurp them and actually implement those and actually reinstate the original Constitution, the organic Constitution? You don't think that? I think it could. I think. Look, I had 1,500 votes in my county.
Well, listen. If you had, this is a big if and a big hypothetical. If you had 1,000 solid, committed, devoted, that were about that had public traction, which they'll never get through the mainstream media, because again, the enemy owns the media. That's the biggest problem we have, is that they own the money system, which they're getting ready to convert over to cashless anyway.
No, Mike, I had 1,500 that wanted to take a chance. I had 1,500 that were willing to take that chance on me. That they needed. They got that little push to actually scratch that check mark next to my name. You know what I mean? Because look, we know the American people are wimps. We got a bunch of powder puff cakes out there.
Yeah, you just proved my point. You had 1,500 in your county that were willing to try to get you in, and 1,500 out of the millions that voted for whoever they voted for just ain't going to cut it. I mean,
no, not millions. We didn't have millions in my county. We didn't have millions. We had about 25,000 in my county that were registered voters, and we had about 10,000 registered, in my county. That's in my county, my district. Right. So what I'm trying to say is that if we had more Joe Gibsons in North Carolina, if we had 8 candidates running, that would be great.
Right, but look how virtually impossible it is just to get one in. And we're talking about getting 1,000.
I know. But Mike,
again, I don't sound like the pessimist here, but I'm the realist. I'm an ultimate realist. So to me, it's about.
You talked about fundraising, Mike. You talked about fundraising the other day, how hard it was. Listen, I have a state-registered committee that can raise money with the de facto legally on their terms, without the IRS kicking down my door. I can, I have a state run. If we had 8 state-run committees in North Carolina with 8 candidates running, we'll have movement. You'll have a say. You see, you have to play by their game and their rules right now until we can get in there and have the power to change the rules. Because right now we don't have the power to change the rules back to the way it's supposed to be. We don't have it, But we have to usurp them. We have to get in there so we can change the rules. I just believe that getting a voice. I believe it can be done.
Yeah. Well, I thought so. When I was putting forth my effort. I mean, obviously, my efforts at thebigvirushoax.com, those have paid off in the sense that it's there and the information is now on that website for people that discover that website. They have everything there.
But you know what, Mike? You know how many people in the grocery store line today knew about Righteous Army? You know how many people knew about it? Nobody heard about it. And I was talking to people today. Right. There was 5 people in line. Nobody heard about it. Nobody knew. Right. You know what? You want to know why? Right. Because you're not out there in the mainstream. But if we got to get you out there. And how you do that by playing the de facto's game. And you did. Obviously, you got your platform out there. You got the information posted, so because you went by their rules on YouTube and you built their website and you played by their rules. But now you can only go so far. That's why that's what I'm saying. Doing different things.
Let me correct you on that, because to the contrary, I just am a person who puts truth online. And when I did that with my 15-year YouTube channel, they took it down. And then when we did it with the Big Virus Hoax YouTube channel, they took it down. YouTube has taken numerous channels down. That's why I have multiple channels as backups.
Yeah.
But, and that's aside from the fact that, I put everything on BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube.
We connected, obviously, and other people can connect. But I brought this up in one of the videos too. Is you have lawyers out there, doctors who are working all day long. They work from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. They're not going to be on Zoom until 2 o'clock in the morning. So we have to go out there and play in their schoolyard. We got to go to the recreational court. And by doing that, we go in there and we become them for a little while, and then we say, hey, it's time to change the rules to what's right. Look, you know what's right. You know this is right, reinstating the Constitution. You know that these codes and statutes are illegal and they're wrong. And you play at the conscience and the heartstrings of the American people. I believe that good will always overcome evil one way or another. And I believe there's still a lot of good out there in America. It's just that you just got to kick them in the rear end and get them over that hump. And it's very difficult, It's very difficult because we're a selfish people. My time, my checkbook, my money. It's me. So let's go into their me world and flip the script on them. And that's why I did that here in my county. Restore the Republic. That sign was all over my county. Restore the Republic. You know how many people saw my signs and thought about it and said, well, "Restore the Republic." What's he mean? And how many people? When I was at the polls, people who weren't even voting for me wanted to meet me. Like, who's this guy, Joe Gibson? What are you talking about, restore the Republic? And I had to explain it to him. And you get that. And like I said, you get 10, 20, 30 candidates across North Carolina now in different counties saying the same thing. We get more guys like Mike, Joe in there. Now we can change the rules. We can override. It'll be hard. It'll be a battle. But look, these people didn't do it overnight to us. But as long as we're doing the right thing and we're doing what's godly, and I believe we'll be blessed in the long run, and I believe God will give us a reprieve, and we won't get into this new world order. I believe it'll be put off some, and we can have some sort of spiritual awakening that can buy us some more time so we can live, and our children can live, and our grandchildren can live. Because right now they're pushing us to death and destruction quickly, and we're losing that information war. We're losing it. And a prime example of this is going to be when I debate this guy here in about 30 minutes here, this liberal Dan. You're going to get an audience loaded with liberals, okay, that are going to probably attack me, and you're going to listen to the lack of common sense that this guy has when I start bringing up facts and portraying exactly what's going on in the major cities across America, the decline, the moral decline, the fabric of our society being destroyed. And how they're going to deny it. And I mean, I've done this before, and it's really quite interesting how the liberal went their back into a corner. But if he embarrasses himself, he has quite a following on his podcast and his radio show. And if I put it to him the right way, maybe we can turn some of these whack zombies up and wake them up and snap them out of their brainwash spell. I mean, hopefully they haven't been vaccinated. Most of them probably already have, so they may be gone already. But maybe they're connected to those 5G towers. Who knows?
Yeah, well, no, they are certainly going to be. That's an issue.
I
got another caller here that wants to jump in here. Temporarily. And just for everybody that is listening, we'll be simulcasting here shortly with the Liberal Dan podcast, and we'll be having a discussion, one-on-one discussion about policy failure and the policies of America, and just exactly how much damage the Democrat Party is doing to our republic. 323. Let's bring on 323. See what they got to say. 323.
Hello, boys. Hello, Joe. Michael, this is Joe. I'm
hey,
here
Joe,
for that
how
debate.
Are you?
I'm doing fine. So I'm hoping that you lay down some ground rules with this guy. I was about to ask you if he's the guy that's on BTR. I think he is. So I hope you lay down the kind of ground rules that you and I had set so that he doesn't do the Fauci tap dance. But I know it's going to be an interesting type of debate,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'd like to volunteer my services in the future if you have any more debates and if you feel that you want somebody to do, whoever comes on your show, a nice little grilling job, I'd be glad to do it.
Yeah, that would be you as being the moderator or the question guy that had questions both parties.
The moderator. That's right.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, actually. And you do ask hard questions. I believe my other caller here that's on the line with me right now, he's heard you question the Republic when we were on a couple months
Mike,
ago.
I know. I've heard.
Yeah.
I know. I've heard him on your other show. The thing is that not only asking the hard questions, but you got to let them know that you are allowed to interrupt at any time and to keep the questioning along a logical line. You can ask you can ask hard questions, but if they start to tap dance,
wait. Keep the questioning along a logical line with libdoms. Come on.
Like with anybody. Let me tell you something. Anybody, conservatives, libertarians, I'm a libertarian, liberals, we all have confirmation biases. And we have to make sure that whoever you ask, whoever you question, they have to come across in a very nice, short, succinct way so that the audience can understand what they're saying and they don't do the tap dance. So, but people will resent it and people will feel as though they're being treated rudely. So if you tell them in advance, this is what's going to happen, then they have no reason to whine. Now, if you're right about this liberal Dan guy, if he has a nice following, and if you can put him in the corner the same way that I put people in the corner, without taking off their legs, then you can be very effective. So I'm here for that debate. I just wanted to say hi to you guys, and an hour and a half. I got to wait an hour and a half for this guy to come on.
No. It's actually about what time is it now? What time is it right now? It's going to be in actually 25 minutes. It starts 25 minutes.
25. All right.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
In any case,
25 minutes.
One thing I wanted to ask both of you guys, and this is a criticism of both of you. As a matter of fact, of anybody who has Zoom meetings for 6 to 8 hours at a time. That's what you guys have had. And I'm saying to myself, why? You can condense that to 2 hours and get things done without the blah, blah, blah. So I just said that as a criticism, but it's also my advice to people. If you're going to have a meeting, not a freaking webinar.
Yeah.
Get the agenda down.
Yeah, let me respond to that. I appreciate what you're saying, Joe. And you're right in what you're saying, but it's all I can tell you is that what I do is I always, pretty much go the way of, okay, this is our meeting, and whatever we're going to address, and we'll do our best to address it all within an hour. And sometimes I'll just stop the recording at that point, or maybe restart it. But at that point, I'll say it's kind of an open dialogue now. So, I'll try to get the issues squared away at the up front, and then I don't care. People can talk about all kinds of interesting issues. So that's
the problem, Mike.
That's
if you're going to have a meeting, the meeting is there to get an agenda fixed and to get the methodologies spoken about quickly and then implemented. If you're going to have 8 hours to have open dialogue, and you're going to have 8 hours of open dialogues and nothing gets done. I haven't been there, haven't never been at any of these meetings, but I'm going to say that very little has been done. That's my prediction. Am I right or wrong?
It always ends up in a crash and burn, too, at the end sometimes. Like the other night, it ended up in a crash and burn.
Let me say this in conjunction with what I already said. I just happen to be a firm believer that there's a lot of people waking up and there's a lot of information that's surfacing that a lot of people don't know about. So a lot of my purpose is just to talk about a lot of different things so that it's been recorded, so that when it's out there, who knows who is going to hear it and say, wow, that's an interesting perspective. Wow, I never thought of it like that. Wow, this makes sense. I never heard
and I've heard you say that on Joe's other show. You've got a website. You've also got something like 1,700 members signed up for your newsletter. You've had that message out there. It doesn't need to bear repeating every single meeting, in my opinion. Okay, I'm just saying it's my opinion.
No, I hear you.
And if meetings are there to get things done, my opinion, again, you don't have an open dialogue every meeting. You say, gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming. Here are the topics. Here's the agenda. Let's get started. Okay, what's the first issue? Okay, then you have, let's say, a Joe versus a John. They have a difference of opinion. And then whoever's the moderator gets into it and gets from them the relevant details about what the problem is, get an agreement, or agree to disagree, and then make note of it, and then move on.
I would say this, Joe.
Yeah.
I would say this, Joe. The night that Joe, actually Mike, the night that he did the moderation of me, where he grilled me on a liberal platform, pretty much. There was mainly all Democrats and liberals that really, at the end of the show, supported me. You know,
that's right.
And in the beginning were against me. Yeah.
That's right. Every one of them said they would vote for him.
Yeah.
It's getting the truth out there, and it's doing it in a way to influence people. To have 8-hour open dialogues, you're going to have people talk about the history of this and the history of that, and what we need to do, and if, and blah, 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 blah. You guys are, and have been, extremely ambitious for the protection and unification of America for the last few years. We don't have time anymore. It's 10 to midnight. The New World Order is crashing and burning down processing plants, meat plants. They've already got the bugs in stores. Okay?
Yeah.
You got the transgenderism here. And what about the new, did you hear about this? There's a new study guide that came out from Stanford, which is recommending you can't even call us Americans anymore. It's U.S. citizen because it's offensive.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
The quickening is here. So, again, these are just my opinions. I do my own thing, and, everybody else does theirs. So I'm just giving you, the benefit of what I think would be
at least
decent advice.
I hope, Joe, in 6 months when, I'm already getting, as soon as I get my name back on the primary ticket here, which that's going to be the plan here. I still got my committee up and going, and I'm going to make another run here in North Carolina in my district. I need campaign people. I have to get, the war room going. I've got to get it out there and have people out there. We got, if people believe in me and they like my message and want to see something start to grow here in this area, and where we can branch off, and grow farther and expand, even if it's not with me, with new people who can bring along the same faith and positive message and get things done. Then I need boots on the ground.
You absolutely need boots on the ground, and I can talk to you for a good half hour if you want in private, just you and me, and talk about that. You may like what I have to hear, and you may not like other things that I have. What I have.
Well,
to
do
hear.
you have a pen? I'll give you I'll tell you what. I'll give you my number, my private number. I'll give it to you right now, and you call me. You want to block your number or whatever? You call me when you feel convenient, and we'll have that conversation. Just let me know when you're ready.
Let me get some paper here.
Yeah, sure.
And okay, because It, like I said, it only take about a half an hour's worth of a conversation.
Yeah.
And okay, now I got to find my pen.
That's all right. Take your time.
Okay, Joe, shoot.
All right, 336-419-7236. And anytime, give me a call.
419-7236. Am I right?
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Anytime, and give me a call, and I'll answer, and we'll you can give me that 30 minutes and pound me, and whether I look, I tend to go with a lot of things I don't like because it works. Sometimes, you know.
Yeah, well, I just hope that I make sense. That's what I like to do, and I'm. But a lot of people on this planet, when I was hired to be a consultant, well, not really consultant, I was hired to work for a company and to bring in change. We agreed on what I was supposed to do. Then when I got hired, I'm talking about this one particular company, as soon as I got there, they say, Joe, you know, we really don't do it like that. I said, well, I know, that's why you hired me. But then they kept, so I decided to, you know, with a mutual.
Well, I got my hit. I got hit today, actually, with the letter from the State Board of Elections, and I got to do my fourth quarter disclosure for my state committee, and you know, because your campaign finance committee, and you know they're on you, and you got this, you know, do your declaration page, and you know whatever you received, and what anything you paid out, and stuff like that, you know, campaign finance.
Right. And I also have a tip for you. You've got a database that I think is even bigger than Mike's, which you've had for years. I forget what you call it. But it's about people who have registered, I believe, with the Republic. If you reactivate that database and you send out emails, you can get the software that will send out blast emails, so it won't be spam. You'll be able to reactivate those people. It will take time. It will take effort. But, you know,
that's
elbow
an idea.
grease,
Wow.
you know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right, because we have reached out far and wide in many different ways and areas throughout the internet and social media and whatnot, also, and political connections. So, yeah, that's something I'll have to think about. We'll talk, like I said, privately on that issue too, and yeah, I mean, because I'm serious, I'm in this to win this time. The first time I was testing the waters and I jumped in, and I wanted to win, but I just new, you know, it was my first time, and I had the ideas, and when, you know, I was a new kid on the block. They even said that, newcomer. You know, the Channel 12 was it WXI News here? You know, newcomer. So this time I'm not going to be a newcomer. I'm going in there, and I want to
ask you a question though. This is going to seem, and I'm on the side of Michael on this one.
Okay.
Is that if you go in as a Republican, okay?
Yep.
And I understand your reasons for wanting to be a Republican because it's, you know, it's known by the people, Democrats and Republicans, and anybody who's independent, just people seem to kind of fluff off. However, we both know that the Democratic machine and the Republican machine in all the states are well funded for those people who will do what they want. Now, of course, both of you and I also agree that we have to vet the people to get into office who will not be bought out. How do we do that? Now, in the meantime, I'm a libertarian. Ron Paul was a Republican who was actually a libertarian. And you mentioned if we had 1,000 Ron Pauls, we have to remember Ron Paul by himself as a Republican did nothing.
I know.
While he was in office because everybody else was against him.
Yeah.
Everybody,
how do we change
even the
that?
Republicans.
Yeah.
You know,
how do we change
that? So we have
that?
to we have to change that. We do. Okay, so I'm tired with my filibuster. I won't interfere anymore. I just want to wait for the debate.
Yeah, okay, I got you. We'll see what we got, about 10 more minutes, and I got to call over to his podcast, and we'll get it. He's going to link up with YouTube and everything, and we're going to get it going.
That's another good thing, too. If you had a YouTube channel like Mike does, and you combine your YouTube channels, again, you do not have to have a leader of the entire movement. It's like this was a mistake of what the truckers did. The truckers, everybody wanted to be a leader. Remember, Mike and Joe, everybody wanted to be a leader of the truckers who went to Ottawa And no, this is my territory. This is my turf. You don't have to have that. You can just have people who will help each other when they need help, and everybody doing their own thing, but helping each other, keeping in contact with each other to help each other out. And then
that's
it
what
will
I
evolve.
said the same thing. Yep.
You said the same thing? Oh, okay. I'm glad.
Yeah,
Okay.
we evolve to branch out and expand. It doesn't have to be me that's in the top guy. Let's get to. It could be other people just carrying the same torch. I mean,
exactly. Like, for example,
you
you and Mike disagree on what you should do tonight in certain areas, but you agree on certain things. You're hoping, like, for example, you sent him money, I believe, for him to buy some. Oh, by the way, Mike, you don't want to have that printer. Okay, you don't want to have an inkjet. Inkjets, as you already know, they cost you $30 per cartridge. The cartridges will die out, and if you use them, they will dry up in 2 months.
I just lost you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey,
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I can
hear
you
guys,
now.
but I'm back in the community where I live, and every time I'm going through this on my phone, I either lose you for a minute or two, or it drops. So.
All right, let me say this over to you again. You do not want an inkjet or whatever particular printer that you're using because it's just costing you money. You need to buy a laser printer. Unfortunately, they're expensive as hell now. But if you can buy one for about $100, $150, $200, even though they're very cheap, inkjets you can get for like $50, $60. If you can get the laser jets, I'm talking about
Well, hang on. That's what I have, Joe. I got the LaserJet Pro, the all-in-one LaserJet. That's what I have.
You got the laser?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Wrong terminology. Not LaserJet. A laser printer, not a LaserJet, because it's almost the same as an inkjet. They use these small cartridges that dry out. You have to use the laser that has the powdered cartridges, the toner, as opposed to the
toner. Okay, so let me see. Hang on. So is a color LaserJet Pro M255DW. That's what I've got. I've got 2 of those, brand new in the box, sealed up. That's what I have. Are those any good?
If a LaserJet. Now, see, if it's I go by laser. I said LaserJet by mistake because there's inkjet and there's another jet. Those dry up the cartridges real quick. If you have a laser printer and not monochrome, well, unless you can use monochrome. If you don't need color, then get a laser printer monochrome. That's for about $150, $200 because the toner will last you for months, if not a year.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Right. Yeah. Well, they say these cartridges go for about 755, 1,000 copies. That's what they say. So that's what they say.
Yeah, that'll do. I've done thousands of copies and scans on mine, and it lasted for years.
Well, I pump out 1,000, so
Yeah.
I mean,
so if you don't need color, then get yourself a. And I meant Mike. If I said Joe, I apologize. I meant Mike, because Mike, you had Joe.
No, you were
sent
talking
Mike
about
money.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So get
well,
the laser.
I sent out Christmas cards. I sent out Christmas cards to some of my voters and the base, Republican base. So I'm staying in contact. I'm still active here, and like I said, I'm in this to win this time around. 2024, I believe, is the election for us to flip the script on the de facto and get in there and start restoring our organic constitution and republic. I believe this is it. Really, there's no more playing games after this.
Yeah, by the way,
you're absolutely right about that. Go ahead, Mike.
Since it is Christmas, if anybody ever hears this show, if you want to send Mike, since he can't even afford a $30 ink, let alone a $200 laser printer, feel free to purchase one and send it to 19800 Southwest 180 Avenue, Lot 446. Miami, Florida, 33187. So, Mike, you could just put Mike Singer on there as a belated.
Well, Mike,
Christmas
why
gift.
are you so poor and destitute? I mean, what's going on with you? I mean, you can't get out there and work.
I think
what's going on?
I think you know the answer to that. I've said it so many times, and maybe you never heard it. But before the scamdemic, clamdemic depopulation bullshit kicked in, life was different for everybody. And I was a guy that was playing acoustic guitar and singing at marinas and bars and restaurants, and I had ever-increasing gigs coming up. I had finally kind of culminated in my musical career in terms of learning just all kinds of great songs. I was playing and singing Stairway to Heaven and Dust in the Wind and Blackbird and, some blues and some country and some pop and some jazz, just kind of mixing it up. In several of the places I played, the managers told me that I was their favorite act that came in. They really appreciated me. I get pretty, into character when I'm out there instead of just being a dud sitting on a chair playing and singing. I can imagine. I'm at a concert. Yeah, so I have a good time. I'll bring sticks and bongos and invite people up off the table to come up, and kids are always dancing around me.
Hey, that sounds cool. I like that.
It was great. And aside from that, I was driving Uber to make a few extra bucks. So that was my life, But in March of 2020, everything shut down. I lost every one of my gigs. I even had students where I would go into students' homes and teach, for $60 a lesson. I had a few students, and none of them wanted me coming in their home because they thought I was going to bring some disease that doesn't even exist into their home. So I lost all my gigs. I lost my students. Uber terminated me for not wearing a face diaper after I warned them and told them that if they're going to do business in the U.S., they have to abide by U.S. laws. And under law, if I don't wear them for religious reasons or health reasons, you cannot discriminate against me based on 42 U.S. Code and the Americans with Disabilities Act, Title II and Title III, federal civil rights. But the bastards terminated me anyway. So I lost all my income, and when I did, I became a not really, I'm not going to say it was vindictive, but I was certainly driven with a passion to go after all the corrupt bastards in this world and expose every aspect of them, everything, uncover everything about the.
It's a good motivation to me.
The whole,
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I went balls to the walls, and as a result, it's is the greatest, most important, significant, meaningful website on the internet today. An address that gives the right answers to everything regarding viruses, what they are, what they're not, the science behind it, vaccines, how they're incorporating technologies with vaccines, the whole social media censorship, social scoring, digital currency, the New World Order, One World Government agenda, our rights, the laws that protect our God-given rights. It addresses everything. And after doing that for 2 years, it is a kick-ass website. I ended up getting some significant supporters, not that it was a livelihood, but some significant supporters because of those efforts. Just 2 days ago, I got another $99.99 donation, and the guy said, Mike, keep up the great work. I love thebigvirushoax.com. It's awesome. So every once in a while I'll get somebody like that, and it helps. But I admit that when I realize that the answer comes down to we the people who are essentially, would identify as being center to right, Trump supporters, conservatives, Christians, patriots, truthers, wearing their Don't Tread on Me t-shirts and their American flags. We need to unite and organize county to county, state to state. There needs to be a militia office, a righteous army office with 5 to 10 people coordinating it.
Let me ask you something, Mike. Let me ask you this. When you got that $99 donation from the guy, what did you do after that?
Well, right now it's sitting in my PayPal account because every month I get, things automatically, like for domain names or hosting.
What did you do with him after you got the donation?
Oh, as soon as I got it, that I always send an email saying, hi, the person's name. Hi, this was Russell Green. Hi, Russell Green. I use the first name and the last name. Hi, Russell Green. Thank you very much for your generous donation and support. It is much needed and greatly appreciated. Together we will keep fighting the good fight. Bless you.
Okay, which is good. Then what?
Mike?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What happened? And then what?
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, I use the funding for these purposes.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because Joe's guest is going to come on in a few minutes.
No, actually, no. It's not. He's not going to be here for 20 minutes. I screwed up on the time. 20 minutes. I got 20.
Okay.
Yep, 19 minutes, 55 seconds. Sorry.
All righty. So, Mike, you send the guy another email. You send him a PDF. You send them links to your website. You might even send them a little video. Okay, and you continue to do this with your donors, to keep in touch, to let them know that not only do you appreciate them, but you got to prove to them why you're worth that $99. You got to show him what you've been doing.
No, I appreciate that. I think what covers that, I didn't mention it, but I mean, these are all people that are on my mailing list, on my email list. So every time I send out videos and everything.
But you just said, you send out every month. Hopefully you send it out every month. But with with the people who give you donations, they're actually showing that they believe in you. You have to show them why.
So what special treatment are you giving them? Or what thankfulness? You kind of got to make them stick out a little bit of appreciative, a little bit more than the average Joe Schmo that you send out an email to all the time.
Well, yes,
like Joe said.
But I was thinking to put a wall of fame on my,
That's an idea. You put a wall of fame on you, and with the express permission of everybody who sent you donations.
Right.
You have this wall of fame, and you show that to other people who are coming in to let them know they are not alone in donating to you. You are a bona fide person who is showing people the way. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's true. Because some people like it. Some people like that extra attention.
Yeah, I fantasize about winning the $400 million Powerball or whatever, because if I did, I truly would contact every single person that ever donated to me, and I'd give them all $100,000 for real, just because they believed in me and had that.
And I understand that, but in the meantime, you've got people who believe in you. You show them that you're worth it. Okay? This is just, I used to be a marketing director, so I'm giving you my little experience.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct, because growing and growing any type of group or inner core of a group, you have to show your appreciation. And some people like that. Other people like participating in other ways. Other people like auctions. Other people like raffles. Other people like
raffles.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's just certain ways that you make people interact with you more. And some people just like to remain anonymous. Some people don't want to be bothered. They just want to give you the money, which are few, You got to get them all in there.
Yeah, actually, the one woman in Tennessee who donated the most to me over the last 3 years, total of about $5,000 over the course of two and a half.
Wow.
You should be buying this guy trips to massage parlors.
Right, I know. No, it's a woman, and she said, that she wants to remain anonymous. She doesn't want any.
Same thing. Okay.
She doesn't want me to mention her name or anything,
Well, that's cool. But you still keep in touch with her. All right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She is somebody who is showing you appreciation. You have to show them appreciation. They've given you money. You got to give them your philosophy and why it works.
I'm sure she doesn't have a crush on you.
Yeah, well, that'd be better.
Definitely not that.
All right. In any case, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to put myself on mute. Let you two guys get back to your conversation before I interrupt it, and I'll wait for the debate.
Yep. We got about 15 minutes to go. That was a good conversation there, Joe. I appreciate that. That was really good, But, tonight, though, for the new callers, we got one-on-one with Liberal Dan and his liberal crew coming up here soon. And we're going to be having the liberal faction of America that everyone is up in arms in our court, in our side, that we got to say, hey, these people are destroying our republic, and we have either got to wake them up promptly and quickly, or we got to show them the door. one way or the other, because they're destroying the moral fabric of our republic. Or if it's not, it's already been destroyed, and we've got to rebuild. But Mike, that was an interesting conversation also that you and I had about, reassimilating the republic back into the de facto. Doing what they did. It took years, hundreds of years, for them to take over our republic and destroy it and bring it down to nothing. And I believe that that's an idea and a way to go about doing it. Getting these people in there and getting them elected. I mean, I thought the Tea Party movement was good. They had the right idea. They were just fundamentally controlled by the opposition. It was the same thing like the Republican Democrat Party. They were, the same money funds. The same, both sides of the coin. There, the same thing. Flip the coin over, it's the same side. So, but I forgot the train of thought there before Joe came in. What you and I were actually on, and what topic we were on there. So, I mean, what do you think, Mike? You think that's something of interest? I mean, using your platform and my platform to try to get people out there to get their name, to file a notice of candidacy and start their committees. And in their particular state, you got one guy that wants to do governor. He wants to run for governor, but he just can't have he just doesn't know how to run a campaign. He needs a campaign manager. I mean, I think there's other people in it, and I think, Mike, to be honest with you, let me not beat around the bush here. I think that the people out there that want to put on, that have their personality, like you said, in the Zoom conference, you get the personality people that want to take over. They start talking and they don't shut up, and they really want to put on a show for everybody, and that's fine. That's where you need them to run for public office. You need that person to be running out there for public office, to put their ideas out there and repetitively, and and if they're right and they're doing it right, and they're got good ideas and solutions, and they're really going to implement them, we need their big mouths out there on the campaign trail to shut down these liberals that I'm going to be talking to here shortly. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Right now, I'm hanging upside down on my seat, or hanging up.
God. Oh, Lord. That's a sight to see, let me tell you. I can only imagine that's got to be a sight to see. What is this? What was that movie there? Cape Fear. Remember Robert De Niro? He's hanging upside down talking to the girl on the phone. Remember that?
No, I like that.
Oh, boy. That's the Looney Tunes we got on this show.
I remember when the girl threw either hot soup or something hot on De Niro. Didn't faze him at all, since he was in the hole for a while, and nothing fazed him.
Yeah, remember that? And he goes, "Are you offering me something hot?" Yeah, that was a movie that was off the hook. I remember watching that years ago for the first time, and obviously now it's more older and it's less sophisticated like the movies of today. But that was something else back in the day, like they like to say.
You want to watch something that's scary? Before I came on the show, I was watching The Prisoner with was Bob McGowan. I forget his first name.
Prisoner.
And it was. Yeah, The Prisoner. It's on Tubi, or you can watch it probably on YouTube. If not on YouTube, you just go to tubi.com.
Yeah.
And The Prisoner. It was first presented back in 1967, and it was an English series. It lasted for 2 seasons, and it's scary how this guy predicted what the New World Order, in an allegorical form, would be like. Uh-huh. How people would have to give up their thoughts, their feelings, in order to serve, their masters. It's interesting.
Really?
I didn't want. When I first saw it when I was a kid, I thought it was cheesy and hokey and didn't understand it. It's politically motivated, politically oriented, but it's scary in that it applies to today, at how brainwashing, can be so effective. But it's doing it. It's doing it in a way that it's entertaining, yet it's scary when you take a look at, how it's 1967 and then 2022, no real difference. In other words,
remember
it's
that
the British
movie?
version of The Matrix.
Yeah, remember that movie They Live? With Rowdy Piper?
Yeah. I wish we had glasses like that so we could actually see who's who.
I can't believe we got one that can see.
I do have those glasses.
Yeah, right.
They're innately in my eyeballs.
I'm just curious, Mike, if you don't mind me asking. It's just something that just gets on me on my mind. It's just something I thought about, and I think about it from time to time when you got background people talking at your house there. I'm just curious if you want to answer. If you don't, I understand. How did you meet your wife?
Well, I was kind of doing the same thing that I just started doing today. I was working out. I went to a park to run and do some calisthenics, and I saw this really good-looking, beautiful woman pushing a baby carriage, and I didn't know if it was her kids or if she was a babysitter. And she kept going down the street, and I got out of my car and ran up to her and said, "Hi, excuse me." She turned around and said, "Hi." She said, "I don't speak English." I said, "Oh, yo estoy aprendiendo español." And then she kind of smiled. And I said, "¿De dónde tú eres?" She said, "Venezuela." I said, some small talk, and then we traded numbers. And she got in touch with me, and she called me a week later, and we got together. And
what did you talk about? When you take her out for dinner? I mean, they don't eat pets around here, so what did Venezuela? And we know that country, they're in bad shape.
Yeah.
I mean, because she don't speak English, so obviously she's clear from.
You're thinking China, man.
No, Venezuela too, man. They're eating animals down there. It's bad down there.
Yeah,
from what I heard.
Yeah. Now they are, I mean, it's very bad in Venezuela,
exactly. It's good.
Now when he met his wife, I'm sure, but it was getting there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I heard
30
though, but
30 or 40 years ago, Venezuela was like the gem of the world, man. I mean, everybody.
Yeah, Venezuela,
80s,
Argentina. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and being from Miami, Florida, I just about every travel agency you'd walk by had 2 or 3 gorgeous, Venezuelan women in G-strings, turned around looking at the camera, on a beautiful beach, and it was like, wow, that's the place to go.
Interesting.
Boy, the world ain't the same anymore, buddy. It ain't what it was 30 or 40 years ago. It's just a shame. It's just gone down the tube so badly. I mean, in so many ways. I mean, I have personal opinions. I could just, I've said it before. I won't get into it now, but
no. I understand.
Can I make one more suggestion before the debate starts?
Go ahead. Make another suggestion, sure.
When you guys have Zoom, whoever is the moderator, take control, unless you like 6-hour meetings. Shorten it.
Okay.
Make sure everybody gives succinct answers. They won't like it, but if you let them know this is I'm taking charge of the Zoom tonight. We all have to go to bed before midnight, so we'll address the issue.
We did one that was 9.5 hours. It went from 6 o'clock to 3:30.
That's way too much, and that's way counterproductive. Okay.
Yeah. It was bad. I mean, who would watch that? Who would watch that anyway? Who would sit down and watch that video?
The 15 or 20 people that were on there were down with it.
Yeah, because they're talkers. But you're not trying to talk to just the choir.
Yeah,
you're trying to influence
There's people out there, they enjoy just listening to freaking videos, man. That gives.
You're right. America's filled with couch potatoes. You're right about that.
Yeah. Regardless, your mission is to try to get people to support the bringing together of people in America to make sure that we are Americans first, foremost. Get rid of the scum in Congress, not to entertain.
Right, but again, the problem is they're not going to do it. There's not enough that will do that. They all want to look to some hero like Trump. They won't do it on the.
They found 71 million people voted for Trump this time around. He would still be the president if it weren't for the stolen election. So there are people out there who do want, leaders.
Right. Let's say there was 80 million people that voted for Trump. Some would argue more, but let's just say there was 80 million people that voted for Trump.
Right.
900,950 of them just want to look to somebody else, and they're not willing to do what they need to do to make things right in this nation. About 50 is all I can find in the last 6 months.
So they need inspiration. They need the people to apply the elbow and to give them leadership.
Yeah, they have to have leaders. We lack leadership.
If you're not there to be a leader, you're right. If you guys are not there to be leaders, then who is?
Yeah. There's no leader. We have no leaders out there anymore. We have misleaders. We have misleaders that are leading this country down to the pits of hell, or whatever you want to call it. And you know.
Well, on that note too, again, they look to the superhero leaders that are put in place for them by the evil empire. They look to the let's get a billionaire that had a TV show to put in office, guys. Everybody will love him. They'll vote for him. Anything to pacify them and put it on one man. That's what they do. They're very smart. They've got their system down.
But Trump was not. I don't know, but Trump was not the type. He was a listen, that guy did business with the mafia, okay? And you had to be street smart, and you had to be tough. You were no punk in New York City when you're, during the late 70s and 80s when you were building, doing construction. And I'm from up that way, and and doesn't matter if you were playing a card game and a pool hall, you had to be tough. You were no punk, So so Trump was streetwise, and I think that he showed that, with a lot of these prima donna New World Order so-called thugs, and he punked a lot of them down, and I saw that. Now I'm not going to agree with everything Trump did, but he did a lot, he established some respectability.
He played a role, man. He played the role, and he was commissioned to.
I don't know. I just don't know. I wish I could be a fly on the wall when he's having his private meetings with his family and whatnot. If I was just say I was somebody like Trump, I'm going to have my haters out there too. Or no matter what I do, I won't do anything right. So that's why you got to kind of have an open mind and look at the good and a lot of what these people have done and what they're trying to do. Now, tell me something, Mike. If a lot of the opposition wasn't standing in the way of Trump, the negative opposition or the real criminal opposition that was standing in the way of him, what could he really have done that was a lot better for our country and have achieved it? And if he did achieve it, where would we be today? Let's look at it that way. Just put it in.
As you know, I wasn't a Trump hater. I never was. I was his greatest supporter. I wrote the only original Trump song called Trump Train, which is on the website. You should listen to it sometime. The lyrics say it all. I even have the lyrics on the page. It's on the.
Well, what switched you then? What turned the tide?
Being that I put together the BigVirusHoax.com that has all the answers to everything on it, it became very clear in his third term when he was letting Fauci push him off the stage and wasn't doing anything about getting rid of that criminal and was, pushing the deadly vaccines and claiming to be the father of the vaccines, that's when I had the greatest concern. But it was about at that same time that I was learning a lot more about the Zionist Jew, movement, the whole New World Order based upon Zionist Jews, the whole New World Order based upon, Jesuits.
Be careful. Yeah.
The pieces of the puzzle all started falling together. He put 3 Jesuits into the Supreme Court, and the Jesuits are the top of the line for the Roman Catholic Vatican Papal Institution. And the Roman Catholic Vatican Papal Institution is the beast power in the Bible in Daniel and Revelation. It ruled the world, for 1,500
years. And to kind of back up what Mike is saying, Trump, when he kept on saying that everybody should take the vaccine, it's safe, that was, to me, his downfall. And in terms of the papal dynasty, the Pope just a week ago supposedly said that Satan is God. So everybody had figured that the Pope came from communist leanings anyway, and they may be being proven right, that he may be a New World Order flunky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, it's interesting.
When you consider or know that the Jesuit order is the primo de primo, they're like, the 007s of the Vatican. I mean, they're top-notch people. They're the
That's the top order in the Catholic faith, yeah.
Right. So so for Trump to have put 3 of them on the Supreme Court, that's like handing the Supreme Court to the Vatican. So whatever they want, they get.
How do you know that they were Jesuits, Mike?
Well, at the time they were put on, it was discussed. I remember hearing of all of them. That they
were did they go to Catholic school and were taught by Jesuits? Well, how do you know that they were Jesuits?
Yeah,
Trump went to a Jesuit university.
Well, again, how do you know that these people were? I mean, how do you know what solid information?
Right. Well, I mean, at the time, I had the solid information. I guess I should have, documented that for posterity. But I just, when it came to my attention, based on, I think a couple of them, I heard it in their conversations. It was like mainstream. But I heard all 3. Now, I've also heard that all of them that are on the Supreme Court now are. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard all of them are at this point Jesuits. I don't know that that's true.
Really?
I know that. Yeah, but I know the 3 he put on are.
We've got to be careful of the same thing. Conservatives and libertarians have to be careful of the alt-right press, because the alt-right press does make mistakes the same as the liberal press. We have to be able to differentiate between fact and fantasy. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't know. What you may be saying may be absolutely true, but we have to learn how to differentiate. When we take a look at something, we have to know how to extrapolate from it the truth. If you got 5 Jesuits on the Supreme Court, that's bad news. But we have to know for sure.
Right. Yeah. That would be actually a good thing to actually have the verification on. You're right.
Everything needs verification. It's what I've been saying for months. You have to be clear. You have to have evidence. People, need to have people believe in you. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I researched Trump and what university he went to, and he went to a Jesuit university.
I know he went to
Wharton. Well, that don't mean anything. Where
else did he go? Yeah. But where else did he go?
Well, you don't go to a Jesuit university unless you're.
Why? I took courses at Yale. Yale. Does that make me a skull and bones guy?
It's a good analogy. The thing is that he went to Wharton, which is not, from what I understand, a religious school. What other college did he go
to? Again, I read it. I remember reading it. I don't remember the name.
Well, I'll take your word for it. I mean, Mike, I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying maybe you could be in. I don't know. I just like to, who knows? He's the number one public figure out there.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that he did, which was kind of stupid. Just recently, he made this announcement. We all need a superhero, and he comes out with trading cards. Oh, for God's sake! Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he does put his foot in his mouth a lot.
Doesn't he, though? But, I mean, he was a great president, no doubt about it.
He was a president who was commissioned to do things that would be considered great by true American patriots. No president has ever had rallies through their entire presidency. They have a rally to get elected. They don't have rallies through their presidency. And that's at least consistent with the notion of, hey, get out there and rally the patriots so we can see how many there are, where they are, where they're
I don't
strongest.
buy that for a second. I don't buy that. Yeah. I mean, because I didn't go to any rallies, really.
It's the way to identify.
I'm not going to dismiss it. I'm not going to buy it nor dismiss it because Trump is a human being. And like and all human beings, they are very susceptible to either bribery, extortion, or threats.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so he did a very good job as a president, but he may be also a double agent. We don't know. We have to find out for sure because when we need proof in our mind so that we have the motivation to go forward. Should we support Trump or should we support somebody else or should we be the leaders?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
It's ultimately easy enough just with the vaccine issue, period. Bam, that's it. That's all I need.
That to me is especially important. You don't have a bioweapon that's out there killing a few billion people throughout the world and then say, hey, it's safe for you Americans to go take it. That's his primary achievement. Is that warp speed, and that to me is very, very, very. Oof, it is damning.
Actually, I'll play it for you guys just for fun, and since you probably haven't seen it or heard it on my website.
Well, Fauci's supposed to be being brought up on criminal charges, I hear.
Well, I hear they're investigating him.
That's another thing. It's just a psyop. They make people think something's going to be done.
I'll bet you dollars to donuts nothing happens to him.
That's right.
You think?
Hey, buddy.
He's already retired as the highest paid civil servant in the history of the United States. He makes over $300,000 a year in his position. Or May, I think, right then to retire. Yeah.
Okay, listen to this, guys.
All right.
Have fun listening to this. You're going to hear Don and his buddy Joe. You'll hear both of their voices, and you'll hear both of them saying the same thing. Here we go. Ready?
We have delivered a safe and effective vaccine in just 9 months. The vaccines are safe. The vaccines do work and they are effective. I recommend you take it. I did. And I took my shot publicly to demonstrate to the American people it's safe and effective. I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. The vaccine works, but some people aren't telling you. The ones that get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones that don't take the vaccine.
The answer is straightforward. If you're not fully vaccinated, you have good reason to be concerned.
And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine. I, in addition to that, got the shot. I got the Pfizer. If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized, you're not going to be in an ICU unit, and you're not going to die. It works incredibly well, 95%, maybe even more than that. It works incredibly well. I promise you, they are safe and effective. Listen to Dr. Fauci.
You know, we're pretty good at making things in a way that spontaneously becomes effective.
Blog Talk Radio. Your show is scheduled to start in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
All right.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, hang on a second, Mike. We're trying to connect to Liberal Dan here. Yeah, I heard that. I can't press 1. Hopefully, we've got 2 minutes here.
Nah, if you press 1, it's not going to do anything now. His show hasn't started yet. It'll start in 2 minutes. Because that's what the Australian chick said. You know, it'll start in 2 minutes. So they gave you the 2-minute warning.
Hello, Dan.
Somebody answered.
Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure to see. Is this Joseph?
Yeah, this is Joseph right here. Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. I just brought you into the room. I guess we'll start it immediately then.
All right, I'm here, brother. All right, let's do it.
All right, about a minute.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
All right. All right, guys. Whoever's on the line with me, just kind of stay silent if you can.
Yeah, I'm going to put myself on mute.
All right.
Give the announcement again, and then you two guys will be simulcast. Good going, Joe. I'm glad you got a debate with this guy. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
"'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the land Fox News warned its viewers of a dastardly plan. The liberals were launching their war on the season to get rid of Christmas and commit acts of treason, removing decorations out of their sight and telling you that Santa and Jesus ain't white. Environmentalists who'll come right after your soul. They hate all things Christmas, especially the coal. They'll sneak in your house all dressed in their flannel and instead give the bad kids some new solar panels. They'll take up all decorations that please us. They'll even go after tiny baby Jesus. Now all these Fox lies cause such a frustration. Who would save us all from this misinformation? When live from the net there came lots of chatter. Could it be old St. Nick, or perhaps someone fatter? Broadcasting from New Orleans down in Louisiana, it was none other than Liberal Dan, coming to save the holiday season, busting through their lies with facts, logic, and reason. But I cannot do it myself, he exclaimed, so he called other groups, each one by name. On Christians, on Muslims, on Wiccans, on Jews, on Hindus and Buddhists, and atheists too. Let us all spread the word and tell them indeed that there's no war on Christmas, just one on greed. So instead of joining this manufactured fight, listen to Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right. And welcome back to Local Name Radio. That's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. I believe we have on the line right now we have Joseph Gibson from Gibson Media. He's been on the show once before, and he also has been in our chats before. And I think we had some confusion about time zones, but we're starting off right away, apparently. So here we go. Welcome, Joseph. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. And we are simulcasting with my show, Understanding the Times in Which We Live Today, Restoring Our Republic, Gibson Media. You're correct. Thanks for that, and I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome to the link to your show. Is on my page on Blog Talk Radio. Same thing. I think yours is also pointed to mine or whatever. But, yeah, we are doing a simulcast, so it's both on my Blog Talk Radio and his Blog Talk Radio, as well as streaming on YouTube as well. So you can join us in, I guess, any of the chats. Although, if you're in his chat, I'm not going to see his. If you're in my chat, he might not see mine. So it is what it is.
One of Blog Talk's
follies,
I guess.
It is what it is.
Okay, what was that?
Yeah, I kind of echoed those words there. It is what it is. But I don't know how you want to begin here as far as the policy. I think we got into a good conversation in your last podcast there. But, I believe you were attacking Trump a great deal, and I brought up the issue of, look, let's look at the facts here in America right now. Let's look at the Republican versus the Democrat policies. Or we can just go right off the bat here and you attack what Trump has done, and you do it often of his recent achievements of what he has done during his presidency before he runs again, which he is going to run again. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that since we're always attacking his this notion that he's a racist, Trump's a racist, a neo-Nazi. Trump signed 3 bills to benefit the Native people. One gave them compensation to the Spokane tribe for the loss of their lands in the mid-1900s. One funds Native language programs, and the third gives federal recognition to the little Shell tribe, to the Chippewa Indians in Montana. That's just one example of Trump's so-called massive racism. Would you like to comment on that?
What year did that pass? What year did that pass?
I believe it was in 2019, I believe.
Okay, so we did that with the Democratic Congress, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, so and was he pushing for those things to be in those bills in order for them to get done, or did he, since the president doesn't have a line on a veto, was it something that the Democrats put in the thing and he wanted to sign the overall bill, so he just accepted those monies as part of the overall general bill, or was it a standalone? I don't know about the bill in itself, but it's questions that I would have.
Well, it was a bipartisan effort, in the Congress for those bills to be pushed. But what I'm trying to point at is, if Trump is such a racist, why wouldn't he just veto that? Why would he allow and sign that bill in 2019? Why would he do that? If he's such a racist.
Well, again, was it a standalone bill? Was it part of a greater bill? Like, which bill was it where these things passed? Like, what was the law where these three things? Was it separate bills individually, standalone, or was it part of a greater thing? I mean, sometimes, if people in Washington often vote for or sign bills, regardless of whatever branch you're in, they'll vote for those bills, even or sign those bills, even if they don't agree with everything within the bill. So, I mean, unless he was outwardly advocating and saying, I won't do my bad imitation, but if he was out there saying that he wanted these as part of the bill, if he was out there campaigning for them, sure, I'll give him credit for that. I've given him credit before on a separate subject. I gave him credit on the bill that the right to try legislation about things that were in studies that weren't quite yet approved by the FDA, and people who were, having like cancer treatments or other serious illnesses, and he pushed for and signed this right to try legislation. I gave him credit for that. I'm more than willing to give him credit when credit is due. I just don't know how much credit he should get for this particular thing, because that he signed the law that put that into effect. But I don't know how much he pushed for it. I don't know if he just did it, if he just begrudgingly, maybe he didn't even know it was in the bill. Who knows?
Well, it was introduced.
I have a hard time giving people credit.
Yeah, it was introduced by Senator Tom Udall, Democrat of New Mexico. Actually, it was introduced by him. So, and so that's about as much information as I can remember on that. But I think it was part of the I don't want to misquote myself, the Reauthorization Act, I believe. I'm not sure. But I know it was introduced by Tom Udall, Democrat of New Mexico. But my point again is that if he's such a racist, why wouldn't he just pick that apart, veto it? Why would he sign that bill? A racist surely would not sign a bill like that. I mean, especially when it comes to Indian tribes. That's just one example, because since we're always attacking the fact that Trump is a racist, he's a neo-Nazi. And I think that's false. I mean, to characterize him as being a racist, he's not a racist. I don't think he has done anything during his presidency that would define him as being a racist, other than silly comments that may have been taken out of context by the media, the corporate news media. I mean, like the Proud Boys comment or something like that. But any acts or legislation or official capacity of his job and what he did as president, he did nothing that would promote the idea that he's a racist.
Well, I mean, yeah, you put the caveat. I mean, I'm not going to agree with that. I mean, you put the caveat in there of during his presidency. I mean, I don't think his racism stops once he takes office. I mean, we can point to plenty of things that he did prior to him being elected, like, during the campaign when he campaigned on a total and complete ban on Muslims entering the country. That's what he campaigned on. He might have implemented something different, but he campaigned on a total and complete ban, appealing to the bigoted xenophobes that make up a large part of his base. He, he's tried, that's scapegoating an entire religion. He way back when he had to write that 2-page article in the New York Times about the Central Park Five and how he thought that they were guilty even though they were exonerated. He made his comments about he doesn't want he would rather the people with the yarmulkes handling his money over the black people handling his money. Like there's plenty of racist things from his past, and leopards don't change their spots. So A racist doesn't always have to be the racist doesn't have to always do racist things 100% of the time, or a bigot doesn't have to always do bigoted things 100% of the time. There are people who, when we had Bobby Jindal as governor of Louisiana, and there was some very racist people who supported him, and people were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If they're racist, why are they supporting him? And I'm like, because some people's racism is not hatred of people because they're not white. Some people's racism is just they like the people because he's not black. You know, like there's varying form. Racism and bigotry comes in all shapes and sizes, and it's the idea that I would need. Okay.
All right, if you don't mind, let's if you don't mind, can I just switch gears then? Violent crime is a problem here. Obviously, it's in the news media now. Stick to issues here. Okay, while Trump was president, violent crime when he first came into office, it was on the rise. Before he was elected, okay, and then after he was elected, violent crime, I believe it dropped. It dropped while he was in office. During the for the first 2 years, it dropped. Actually, the violent crime rate, I believe, dropped steadily. I believe it was 523 per 100,000 inhabitants in 2016, 17. 432 in 2000. Hang on, I gotta get my numbers here. I had my notes out here. I'm sorry. Actually, it rose slightly in 2015, 2016, but then the general trend was it went downward after the first 2 years that he was in office. Actually, the violent crime. So violent crime, though. Let's take it as a general across America right now. Every single major city in America has had a sharp increase in violent crime and all crime in general. Okay, and if you look across the board at the stats, whether it be gun violence, whether it be assaults, any type of violent crime is on a sharp rise since Biden has taken office. How can the Democrats take any type of credit for the policies that they've implemented or lack thereof since Biden has taken office? I mean, crime is out of control. How do we stop this? The current policies that the Democrats propose and have proposed while in office in the major inner cities and across America has failed. I mean, can you tell me of any policy that they've implemented in any city across America that has worked thus far, that has decreased crime?
Well, let me just look. Let's look at the numbers for a second. So I'm looking at the U.S. murder/homicide rate, data from 1990 to 2022, and yeah, in 2017, there was the first year of Trump's being in office. There was a 1.32% decline from 2016, and then 2018 there was a 5.9% decline from 2017. And then the next year there was a slight increase and went from 5.01 to 5.07, 1.19% increase. And then in 2020 it was 6.52 or a 28.64% increase. So I would say that crime started at least with murders and homicides or whatever. Those started raising while Trump was still president, and not after he left office. Now, a lot of the things that are dealing with crime, you have causation versus correlation. Like, for example, you're going to have big cities. Big cities are going to have crime because more people are in them. And a lot of people will refer to, let's pull up this information, violent crime by city or murder rate city per capita. Murder rate, because a lot of people like to point to,
let's look at the city of Atlanta. From 2020 to 2021, the number of murders went up by 3%, according to the Atlanta Police Department. Okay, so let's see here. And pandemic is very hard to put a number on during the pandemic years. It's confusing. Yeah, so it kind of gets mixed. I don't want people to mix that up. So I try to go pre-pandemic or after.
I have to change the time. I've inadvertently made a 15-minute show, so I've switched it to it to longer. Oh, hold on, wait. It's still coming up as not being that. Let's see. There you go.
Technical difficulties.
No, yes, I'm having technical difficulties. I have to hit save. There you go. Okay, now we're good. Now we're not going to end in 30 seconds, so we're good.
All right.
So, like,
murders in Atlanta, look, if you're talking, you brought 1990, very interesting, because I've actually have those stats right here in front of me. Murders are up by 65%, yet compared to 1990, murders in Atlanta are down by 32%, if you're looking at that. Despite steady population growth, the city's murder total in 2021 was also roughly the same as the annual tallies in the early 2000s. Okay, if you look at those stats, but if you look at, if you go nationally,
what were they during the Obama
we know from the FBI?
I don't have the figures.
Okay.
I don't have the figures. What were they during the Obama administration?
The Obama administration. Let's see. During the Obama administration, the Atlanta. What do you want to talk about? Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, or nationally?
Yeah, let's talk about city of Atlanta.
Okay, city of Atlanta. Okay, I first pointed out in Atlanta from 2020 to 2021, the number of murders went up by 3%, according to the Atlanta Police Department. Okay. Now, again, this is just one example of the violent crime in the cities across America. They're up all across every single city in America. Violent crime is up. And we know who's elected in most of these cities across America. It's Democrats. The Democrats and their policies of no bail, catch and release, emptying out the prisons. Which, look, I'm all for prison control and letting people out, because I believe prisons is a failed industry, and it's disgustingly disproportionate when it treats different races of people. And there's a lot of things there we could talk about, and that's a deep rabbit hole. But all in general, the policies of the Democrats across the board have failed. They have failed. And I believe a lot of the Republican policies also get tough on crime. That's a failing, locking people up, throwing away the key. I don't believe in that either. I believe there's a whole different way of going about it if I was in office. But that's not the point. The point being is that the Democratic policies are complete failure. What can you say on that? And I mean, what's the excuse? Or as you being a liberal, how can you support any Democrat across America today and the policies that they're implementing in the cities?
Well, I look at violent crime and let you have a good long time to get that out. So violent crime, I'm looking at the stats like during the Obama administration. I'm assuming it's for 100,000 people, like 120, somewhere between 120 and 140, probably about 130 almost, maybe 125 per maybe 10,000 or 100,000. I'm not seeing the number of hundreds of thousands by the crime. But anyway, so it was at 125-ish or whatever in 2009. 2010, if you get down to 2016, it was all the way down to 90. So it was cut. It was cut by 25% during the Obama administration, and then it dropped, a little further, during Trump's administration as well, and then it started going back up during Trump administration as well, but nowhere near where it was in 2009. Even now, even with the increase. The other thing is that talk about bail and how Democrats want to eliminate bail. That's not. Unfortunately, I think conservatives have the wrong idea of what it means to eliminate cash bail. Elimination of cash bail doesn't mean everybody goes free. Elimination of cash bail means that your ability to pay will not dictate your ability to get out of jail on like violent types of crimes. So, for example, if you're a murderer, and you're a millionaire, you won't get the opportunity to get bail. Just like if you were a person who was, impoverished and living on the streets. That's what the cash bail system is, or eliminating the cash bail system is supposed to do. It's taking away the inequities. Are there circumstances, where people who are released on their own recognizances at that point who go back and commit another crime? Sure. And sometimes they go from like committing like a petty theft crime to something more serious, but you can't just assume that just because they did like a petty theft crime that they're going to do something more serious. So then we have to keep them locked up. And if it was somebody who was wealthy, that person, if you still had bail, that wealthy person would still be able to bail out of that particular thing, and that wouldn't stop them from doing some other crime as well. So, so there's a lot of misunderstanding, and I think a lot of the misunderstanding or the misrepresentation comes from a lot of these conservative sheriffs who are probably getting a lot of money from the bail bondsman types folks who are going to lose a lot of money if they lose the opportunity to provide bail to people. So there's a lot to look into with that. But I do think have cities perfectly implemented that? No, but I don't think there's any policy that we can look at that was perfectly implemented. So, but again, by having a system that makes it more likely for persons of color to not be able to make bail, to have to sit in jail longer to wait for a trial, and then to have all the other problems that come with being poor in this country, and black people are disproportionately poor in this country, you end up having a cyclical form of justice that just funnels these people in and out of prison instead of working on things like making sure that they don't commit crimes again and trying to give them more opportunities. And a lot of these cities that are quote blue cities are in red states. So a lot of the times the red states handcuff what these cities can do. They crack down they want to limit the power of what cities can do because they want to have control at the state level to stop the quote so-called liberal policies.
Well, what would be okay? Well, you danced around that question pretty well, and you gave a vice versa or a kind of like a question answer, kind of like I did. So I'll give you credit there. But the point being, then, so what do you think, as a liberal or supporting Democrats, what should the Democrats do to stop this increase in violence across America right now?
Well, there's two things. There's long-term things and short-term things we need to do. Long-term things is we need to give more opportunity. We need to make sure that we provide more opportunities so that people can elevate themselves out of poverty, because higher crime rates go right along with higher poverty rates. So the more poverty you're going to see, the more crime you're going to see. I am not while I understand a lot of the arguments, and I agree with a lot of the arguments of the ACAB folks, I'm not 100%. I'm not like against police, but I'm very critical of police when police do bad. I think police is needed at local, state, and federal levels to enforce the laws. Unfortunately, there are a lot of police who we've seen who have done wrong or have covered up for those who did wrong. I think we need holistic approaches on both sides. I think we need to be more, involved in the schools. We need to make sure that people have opportunities to where they're not just committing crimes for fun. Like, I mean, there's been rashes of crimes in New Orleans where it seems like they're just doing it for fun, and people are getting murdered and killed from it. I live in New Orleans. New Orleans is a very high crime city. I just don't think, again, you said, tough on crime is also not a great thing, and we agree on that. A lot of times back in the 90s, I think people believed tough on crime was the smart thing to do, but just locking people up and throwing them in the cage isn't helping the poverty issue, isn't helping people it's not stopping the cycle. I don't have all the answers on what they should do, but I haven't seen policy proposals from Republicans who run, like, there was no Republican who ran for the mayor of City of New Orleans, for example, that I saw that had any good ideas for how to fix the violent crime problem in New Orleans.
Okay. All right. So you say more government is the answer, more involvement for the government to get involved in our schools, for instance, for just one example, would help. I have to disagree. I would be less government and allowing the people to less regulation, so people in entrepreneurship, so people can be more creative and have more freedom and liberty to produce and create. That would create opportunity, but more government with restriction and regulation and influence in governmental programs clearly doesn't work, because we see that already with the Democratic policies, with the increase in social services, food stamp programs, welfare supposedly to work programs that fail, because they never go back to work because there's no jobs to go back to work to. You have Dollar General jobs, McDonald's jobs. So I would believe that, and that's because there's a lack of business and entrepreneurship and creativity in these cities because of government intrusion in our lives, with regulation, with restrictions, licensing. Is just it's absurd. I believe that the creativity and freedom of people is what can create jobs, real jobs, and free up the private sector. And I believe that would be the answer to creating more opportunity in these cities.
I think I have to disagree with that. If you look at USDA.gov, A recent analysis finds that during slowing economy, $1 billion in new SNAP benefits lead to an increase of $1.54 billion in gross domestic product, 54% above and beyond the new benefits. So there are benefits, there are helps that can happen from food stamps and other government assistance that come on. Now, I wasn't necessarily saying that all of the actions that have to be done at the local levels or at the statewide level has to be all government sponsored. I mean, so I think some of them should be. I don't believe in the overall negative view of government that often conservatives have. I think government has a role. Government's main role is protecting people and entities from other people and entities. And what more important way for government to act than to protect individuals from being victims of crime? So if government needs to get involved, and I don't believe that the whole cliche, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If government got involved and helped to fund more programs, be they government programs, be they NGOs, be they nonprofits that are legitimate nonprofits and not just nonprofits for the sake of funneling money to rich people, you could have many benefits to society that will help reduce crime.
Well, speaking of numbers, real quick, Dave, I just want to make sure I pulled this up. Because of the Black Lives Matter movement and whatnot. The trend of police shootings, you brought up police corruption and whatnot. It's been increasing since Biden took office. Actually, 993 civilians were shot, 139 of whom were black as of November 30th, 2022. In 2021, there were 1,055 fatal police shootings, and let's see, the number of blacks were 116, I believe. Might have that number a little bit wrong there, but so it's definitely increasing the past couple of years as far as police shootings go, and more than when Trump was actually president. So, but nothing in the media, nothing. Why is Black Lives Matter not dancing in the streets and marching in the streets and protesting this? Why is this not a big issue like it was when Trump was president? From the liberal community, the liberals out there this was a big issue with Trump. It was because of him these shootings were happening, because we have a racist president in there, and it's false. The numbers don't reflect that. It's just one of the falsehoods in reporting of the media, and I just don't understand why, and people jump on these bandwagons. Again, I just wanted to bring that back up with the Trump thing, and the numbers on Trump. But one other thing I wanted to bring up about Trump, Trump signed a bill making CBD or hemp legal. Okay, that was part of the Farm Bill in 2018. So, he does again. That's kind of like a liberal way of thinking there. He also signed into law to make cruelty to animals a federal felony. That was a bipartisan group in Congress that also deserves credit to that. So I've got to tell the truth here. But Trump signed that. One of the things that he did during his presidency. Trump finalized the creation of Space Force as our sixth military branch. And military leaders publicly opposed its creation, including Trump's Secretary of Defense James Mattis. Again, this is something, one of his achievements in office. So the list of Trump's accomplishments, I want to get back to that real quick, are great. I mean, you were doing a show last week, and people were tearing him down in the chat room. Trump didn't do anything as president. And tell me something. And real quick, one more thing. Trump signed a law ending the gag orders on pharmacists that prevented them from sharing money-saving information. Okay? What has Biden...
That's a fine thing. I have no problem with that. Okay. Well, Biden went one step further on marijuana. Biden went ahead and one step further and basically has started the process that is required to decriminalize marijuana as a whole and not just CBD. And that's going to probably go a very long way into working to decriminalizing it across the country, because once it stops being a scheduled substance, which they have to follow the law to do several things to decertify it if Congress isn't going to automatically do it by law, that's a one positive thing, and hopefully that will prevent a lot more of needless arrests, because people shouldn't be arrested for simply smoking a drug, et cetera. So.
All right. Well, what about the low wages? Workers are benefiting from higher minimum wages and from corporations that are increasing entry-level pay. When Trump was president, let's see, that was one of Trump's accomplishments. Higher state and local minimum wages. Let's see here. Trump signed the biggest wilderness protection and conservation bill in a decade, and designated 375,000 acres as protected land. Trump signed the Save Our Seas Act, which funds $10 million per year to clean tons of plastic and garbage from the ocean. He signed a bill in his last year, I believe, of presidency, allowing some drug imports from Canada so that prescription prices would go down. Just one more.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, but on the other side of the coin, Trump also was pushing the Keystone Pipeline, something that was going over indigenous land, something that was going over harming indigenous people by seizing their land for something that wasn't even going to benefit our domestic supply of oil, because all the Keystone Pipeline extension is going to do is bring the oil down to Houston so it can be refined and then shipped out of the country to take advantage of tax benefits. So
you're saying that helped America, the shutting down of the Keystone Pipeline? That helped that benefited America?
I mean, that would stop the harm that he was doing, that would have been done to the indigenous tribes, or that was in the middle of doing to the indigenous people, who he was just he was allowing these corporations to trample over.
What do you mean his corporations? What do you mean his corporations? What corporations? What corporations were his?
U.S. corporations. The corporations he was being supportive of by allowing them to build pipeline over indigenous lands, instead of saying, hey, maybe you need to find a different place to put your pipe.
Well, I don't know. I think the killing the Keystone Pipeline was disastrous. I can give you.
How would the oil that was brought from the Keystone Pipeline have helped the country?
Okay, building the Keystone Pipeline, opening up the tar sands. They said, what was it? Will negatively impact national and local economies. Right? That's false. That's totally false. Let's see. By NYU Law School Environmental Law Center estimates, it would increase the U.S. GDP by 2.5%. At the same time, local economies it would affect the local economies in those areas and help the less dependency on fossil fuels from foreign nations by it would put an extra $1 billion actually in the I may have my numbers wrong on that one. I have to look over this real quick here, because you threw up the Keystone there, and I got a bunch of stuff on that one. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's see, unemployment rose actually because of shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. What was it? Vermont went from 731 to 1,331 in 2 weeks after Hurricane Katrina wiped out 129,000 jobs in New Orleans, nearly 20% for the U.S. economy as a whole. U.S. it will cost the U.S. taxpayers, what I'm trying to get to, is $52 billion in 10 years by shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. Okay. You said it disproportionately affects.
I mean, it might increase GDP. Well, look, it might increase GDP. That doesn't mean it's going to help the everyday citizen. It's just going to help the fat cats. It's going to help the oil industry get more money. That's going to increase the GDP of the domestic product by increasing the profits of the people who are benefiting from by the refinement and exporting of oil. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's helping us in any way, shape, or form. It's going out to other countries. It's not increasing the domestic product at all. It's not helping us. It's not helping us being energy independent, like conservatives like to claim these things are going to do.
So you're saying let's just say this here. A study for energy economics developed a transition scenario for the electric power industry based on reducing energy consumption, phasing out high emission power plants, and building new lower emission energy facilities. The study estimated the number of job years one new worker employed for 1 year that would be created by the transition scenario over a decade. 444,000 jobs for construction workers, equivalent to 44,400 construction worker jobs, full time for the entire decade. That's quite a differential in job base by knocking out the Keystone Pipeline and going to this so-called electric power or windmills. Let's see, 3.1 million indirect jobs for people designing and manufacturing, delivering materials and jobs in local economies around the country, induced by spending by workers hired in the transition scenario. So I don't see how shutting down the pipeline you're talking about affecting these lands. I don't have the numbers on the indigenous people lands, how it affected the few lands that you say it affected. But I wish I had the numbers on that. I remember reading something about that. But the Keystone Pipeline, shutting that down was a definite.
How few is okay? How few is okay to be harmed to benefit the many?
Well, look, I mean, everyone can't be happy. I mean, I don't have the answer to that as an individual, but sometimes we have to look at something in a whole as a country. What's better for the country in a whole? Surely those people that may have been bothered by the Keystone Pipeline or may have lost land, we're going to be compensated. Like I said, I don't have the numbers on that, so I can't speak for facts on that, but you're telling me the few that may have been inconvenienced by the Keystone Pipeline, it's not better to have the benefit of the country in a whole in the long run where everyone will make out? Because everyone will make out and everyone would benefit.
If the Keystone Pipeline was going to be going through a large Christian cemetery, do you think that you would see conservatives making the same arguments where it's like, oh, well, they're just being inconvenienced? You know, they're just being inconvenienced, so that it doesn't matter that they're going through the cemetery. Let's, forget that there are people that are buried there, because we like to, protect those burial sites. But for some reason, if it's indigenous burial sites, we don't care. I mean, do you think that people would be making the same argument if it was going through a Christian burial site, if it was going through a Christian graveyard in the back of a church? If they had to tear down a church, do you think you can't answer that? But it's probably. I don't think you would see the same. It's just okay. These are just a few people being inconvenienced. People would pitch a fit. People would absolutely pitch a fit because the even though it's a minority of people being affected, those people are part of the majority, and therefore they're gonna be, oh my God, you're desecrating a Christian burial site. But now because you're desecrating indigenous burial sites, we don't care as a country. We do that. Now I have a question. I do have a regular person who is one of my supporters who is on hold. No, this is going to, this is just supposed to be between us two. Are you okay with him coming on and making a point?
I don't mind at all interacting. No, I don't mind interacting with your fan base at all, actually, no.
Cool. All right, well, here comes Demonox. Thank you. First Liberal Dan Radio patron. Shouts out to Demonox. Sorry for making you wait so long, but I did want to get to the end of that conversation and then make sure that he was okay with adding more people. So I didn't want to be seen as piling on. So...
We are fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, not a problem. And fair warning, I'm Italian. I talk over things, so don't take it as a personal rude insult. If you start talking, I'm like, whoa. It's just me. Okay, so Trump and job losses. He had that graph about how in May of 2020 he has this huge job gain. He puts out that graph about like the different, the ups and downs and stuff. April in 2020 had the largest job loss in U.S. history. Just the largest. It's like when you have the top 3 job losses in all of history, he's in there. Now, I'm not one for a huge fan of Biden. Ask Dan. I mean, I'm liberal, progressive, but I'm like, grr, Biden is not enough for me.
Basically, he says F Biden too. He curses out Biden just about as much as he curses out Trump.
Exactly. So one of the things is I am a firm believer in don't blame the people even you can't stand for crap they have no actual control over. Now, Biden's impact on crime has as much impact as Trump technically had over that job loss. A global pandemic hit, knocked everything out of commission. And yeah, I mean, there was the whole thing about him like misleading the country about, the potential devastation. And he says it was to protect us, to keep us from panicking. But he also said it's about the numbers. So there's a level of accountability there. But the pandemic was going to hit regardless. That's why the CEO of Disney stepped down. He saw the writing on the wall. He's like, I got to get out of here. He put somebody else up to take the fall for that massive losses of income that Disney suffered. But I digress. Ultimately, that job loss was going to hit no matter what. So to say that Biden is responsible for the crime increase that is happening, which, by the way, isn't quite the numbers you say it is, and out of the top 20 highest crime rates in the country, the majority of them are actually in red cities. When you go by per capita, when you go by just numbers, the big cities like New York, Chicago, and Liberal Dan has gone on this several times on his show before, by pure volume, by pure numbers, these big, giant, highly densely populated cities have much higher numbers because there's so more people in them. But per capita, you are much more likely to get murdered in a small town in Tennessee than you are in Chicago, just per capita. That's an actual rate. But Biden's impact on this is about as accountable as Trump's actual impact on the job loss. I hate them both. I hate Trump way more than I hate Biden because Biden sometimes does things that I like because he's kind of leftish to me. But yeah, holding him accountable for that is just silly. And as far as there's only one more thing that I wanted to comment on, it's more of a because you say we should get the government out of things, we should get the government out of schools, and make it more like, private sector and all that. How many CEOs have the public elected?
How many CEOs the public has elected? Well, the public shouldn't be elected.
I don't know how many.
The general public should not be electing CEOs. What do you mean by that? I don't understand. I mean, if you shop at Walmart, then I guess you helped elect the CEO of Walmart. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that.
Okay, so you definitely agree that probably zero, unless you count the public poll that Musk just took about whether or not he should step down or not. That might count as us unelecting a CEO, but for the most part, the public doesn't. So the government is for the people, of the people, and by the people. So we elect people. So CEOs and private sectors and private schools who are run by private interests aren't really serving us, the public, and benefiting us, the public. They're benefiting themselves with whatever they want. Certain things for the people, of the people, by the people. Education serves us better when we get to actually take part in it more directly. Not to say that there aren't private schools that actually have, student parent involvement and stuff like that, but they don't have to. They're not required to. They're not obligated to. And I'm on a two-part thing, and you may or may not agree with me on this one. I think for the most part, government shouldn't get in the way of business, for the most part. But I also believe when business proves that they cannot be trusted and they do things like crash the economy, crash the housing market, crash the banking system, that is when the government should step in and say, you know what, you lost your privileges. We need to regulate the hell out of this.
Well, the government, hang on. The government is not, you're confusing the Federal Reserve with the government. The Federal Reserve is what institutes monetary policy that really does the booms and busts of the economy in America. The central bankers, through the fractional reserve banking schemes that they have. The money, modern money mechanics, they don't understand that or not. But that's really the Federal Reserve that really controls the economy. Now, the policies that are implemented by our politicians are the restrictions that are suppressed upon us, the people, and we suffer from those. The Federal Reserve is really It doesn't
I
touch
definitely
them.
agree with that. I was just kind of using the monetary aspect of it because that seemed to be kind of like a point of like how things hit financially. But in returns to policy that just when the corporation does something that environmentally screws us up, when they deliberately hid the effects of medications that cause like massive heart attacks and tons of people, like thank Pfizer for making the vaccines and all that stuff, but also to heck with Pfizer for hiding and covering up so many hundreds of patients' deaths they knew about. Just stuff like that. Government needs to regulate things when companies screw up and harm the public. I think that's when government needs to step in. And I think that the state of most corporations right now have proven the companies don't care about the people. And I mean, that's the problem with end stage capitalism is it is all about the short-term money game. If companies cared more about the people than the public and keeping people alive and happier and all that stuff and paid better, if I got paid more money, I would spend more money in stores. If I get paid less money, I've got less money to spend. So ipso facto, pay more people more money, and yes, costs go up a little bit, but also much more flowing of money, but short-term cost goes up. I think that the problem with deregulating things, and Trump was heavy into deregulating, is it takes the people's ability to vote for policy change on how these giant, massive corporations that are all congealing together, and we have less ability to vote with our dollars now, because if you don't like a show, you can't boycott Disney because Disney owns 3/4 of all like TV, not literally 3/4, but you know what I mean. You want a different cell phone service, you've got 3 telecom companies now. You can't really vote with your dollars to the same extent that we used to be able to anymore. That level of interactive dollar democracy is basically being stripped. And without some level of us being able to have policy to interact over that, which policy equals government, we have no other way to rein in control when these companies do bad things. And we can't just trust that they have our best interest in heart. I don't trust the government has our best interest in heart all the time either, because you don't get elected for thinking about everyone else all the time. A lot of people, you get elected because you're thinking about yourself. A lot of politicians are like that. But I trust the government just a little bit more than I trust the corporations.
Let me throw in my 2 cents. Wait, let me throw in my 2 cents there real quick, just because I wanted to add something to what he said there. Because take for example the Macondo oil well disaster, the explosion of the oil rig in the Gulf that killed 11 people, and it was really harmful to the industry of like seafood industries of Louisiana, other people living on the Gulf Coast. When they went and did the investigations, and Obama put a moratorium on new drilling in the Gulf, until they could figure out what was going on, and conservatives cried foul. It turned out that these people, like they all kind of submitted the same disaster emergency response plan as like Chevron and BP and Exxon, Shell. All of these big oil companies have all submitted disaster plans on what you would do and who you would contact in the event of who would you contact in an event of a disaster, and all of them listed the same person, and that person was dead. And then it turned out that the oil disaster, what could have happened, and those 11 lives could have been saved. Had the BP decided to put in I think maybe a part that was maybe $250,000, or maybe it was even $50,000. I don't know. It was an expensive part, looking at for when we look at things. But that if they would have just spent that a little bit more money for the safety of the people who worked for them and the safety of the people, or of the security of the jobs of the people around them, we could have avoided that disaster. And when these companies act like this, they prove that they can't be trusted, and as such, the government needs to take proactive steps to make sure that they're dotting all their I's and they're crossing all their T's, and they're actually doing what needs to be done to protect the people around them. Again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And sure, you can't stop everything ahead of time, and there should be enough of a legal threat that these corporations and that the people that run these corporations are going to have to suffer financially if they don't do the right thing. But currently there's not, because we have conservatives who have tried to and have successfully capped lawsuits, capped the amount of money that you can gain by suing somebody civilly, and also you have this corporation, artificial corporation thing that allows these people to just make money hand over fist and not worry about all of the issues, and then let the company die. They have their golden parachute. They make their tons of money because again, everyone worries about the short term because in the long term everyone's dead. So that's why we need more, and we need it to come from the federal government, because a city is not going to be able to regulate a big giant corporation like Shell or Entergy.
Okay.
The city's not going to be able to do it.
Look at that.
The state's not going to be doing it. The feds have to do it.
All right, federal regulation. Despite the prevalence of small business, the Chamber of Foundations review of the literature finds that the federal regulations and their infrastructure are growing and have a disproportionate impact on small businesses and free enterprise in America. Federal regulations alone are estimated to cost the American economy as much as $1.9 trillion a year in direct costs, lost productivity, and higher prices. The costs to smaller businesses with 50 employees or fewer are nearly 20% higher than the average for all firms. The rising burdens of federal regulations come amid a falling pace in new business formation. In 1980, for instance, Americans were creating some 450,000 new companies. In 2013, they formed 400,000 new firms. Despite a 40% increase in the population, our 3-decade slump in firm formation fell to its lowest point with the onset of the Great Recession. Even with more businesses being born today, America's startup activity remains below pre-recession levels. Now, that's the federal regulations. State and local regulations are also a growing burden. Beyond the federal level, small businesses have to deal with a maze of red tape from state and local governments to start a business, apply for a business or occupational license, hire employees, pay taxes, enforce contracts, and even close a business. Regulatory complexity is death by 1,000 cuts to America's small businesses. This problem is compounded by an estimated 90,106 state and local governments in the United States as of 2012, each with their own varied authority to promulgate rules and regulations. Their rules and complexity continue to harm America's small businesses. As a part of the Chamber Foundation's research, we surveyed chamber officials in states across America. These local Chamber of Commerce leaders, many of whom work on Main Street, agreed that regulations are stifling businesses. Indeed, some would not recommend small business locate in their region due to its business environment. So regulations and licensing and government in the private sector is putting a stranglehold on our small business and our economy. Our small businesses create a majority of our jobs in our country today, and I believe, and the facts and the numbers don't lie, that with less regulation, less licensing creates a better economy for you, me, and everyone. And Trump
I think you just
was
proved me in Dan's
advocating
point.
that. What's that?
You just proved me in Dan's point. So in 1980, when did Reagan become president? Was it 81, 82? Is it 82, right? In 1980.
No,
1980.
He was elected in 80. He became president. He was inaugurated in 81.
Okay.
Yes,
so
correct.
In 1980, the economy was at a certain point, and things were working in certain ways that the economy was thriving, right? So starting after the policies of Reaganomics, the deregulations, the cutting of union jobs, job protections, and all that stuff, when the ratio of worker pay to CEO pay started, the wealth gap started exploding, stuff started getting bad. So you got problem number one. So 1980 being when things are really, really good, and now being things really, really bad, that kind of proves the point that conservative policy, not that great. We're still feeling the pain from those big explosions. The other thing is you're saying that a lot of business owners are saying that the environment is hostile for business owners. But the thing is, business owners now are not the same as business owners in 1980. They're griping about having to.
Well, hang on a second here. In 1980, I said, hang on. In 1980, Americans were creating 450,000 new companies. In 2013, they formed 400,000 new firms, despite a 40% increase in population. So that's terrible. Those numbers are staggering.
Yes. we're creating less companies. You said, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, small businesses.
Yeah, so
small businesses.
We're creating way less. So
well,
that means
let me jump in on that.
Let me jump in
on that because a lot of it is because of economies of scale. When you have these corporations, forming like bigger and bigger and bigger, and forcing small mom and pop shops out of the market, simply because of the fact that they can handle the economies of scale better, and so it becomes much more expensive to enter the market. That's one of the reasons why you're going to see less businesses try and compete, because they're not going to be able to compete with a Walmart like on prices, so they have to maybe do something that's a little more niche and something that's going to basically say, okay, I'm going to pay for these higher prices because I get some other type of service that comes along with it that makes it worthwhile for me to buy those products from those people. So part of the problem is not necessarily regulation. It's the fact that you have these big corporations that deal with the economy. Now, when it comes to regulations, I'm not going to say all regulations are good. There are some regulations that are stupid. I've seen some of the stuff like on taxi companies and rideshare, vehicles that because I was in that industry for a little bit, that are really ridiculously stupid, and shouldn't be in place and are harmful to people who are just trying to make a living. But there are also many of regulations that are good, and regulations are not bad because they're there. They're not good because they're there. Each one has to be taken within the environment in which it's implemented. I'm all for looking into how regulations have a disproportionate impact on smaller businesses when it comes to their abilities to enter the market, when it comes to their ability to make a profit, ability to compete in the market. That's fine. We can do that. And if we can improve our regulations in such a way that enable us to be able to make it so that smaller businesses are not disproportionately affected by the rules, then we should absolutely do so. But one of the things to consider is that sometimes these small companies are not really small companies. Take, for example, Edison Schwest is a company down here in Louisiana, deals with oil and shipping and stuff like that. I
was pointing out businesses with 100 employees or less. That's what I was pointing out. That's what was classified as small business.
Right. 100 employees less, but Edison Schwest is a big overall company, but each of its ships are a corporation. Each of its ships is in and of itself a small business, incorporated in and of itself. So even though these ships are doing business, as a small, for a big, large umbrella of a company of Edison Schwest, they're still small business. They're still counted under this whole idea of a small business. They have different tax ID numbers. They have, different, articles of incorporation for each one. If one of these ships ends up crashing into somebody else's boat or into a pier or something, it doesn't hurt Edison Schwest. It hurts just the corporation that is that ship.
Well, let's look at the policies let's look at the policies of today, because that's one we started off as. Because Trump is the big thing. Again, Trump, because you were very hard on Trump, and vice versa, back and forth between the economy and racial issues. That's the big thing with Trump, racial issues, and I didn't really finish my point earlier. Trump increased funding for historically black colleges and universities by more than 14%. The First Step Act provides rehabilitative programs to inmates, helping them successfully rejoin society and not return to crime. And it's true, the First Step Act calls for the Bureau of Prisons to significantly expand these opportunities. But because of a lack of funding, around 25% of people who spend more than a year in federal prison have not completed any program, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, which backed the bill. But you look at all the lives that Trump impacted by that First Step Act, that really was focused on minorities and again, racist. Trump's a racist. How? What did Biden do? What was Biden's thing? The tough on crime during his 50 years in reign in office, 50 years in a public office, and what has he done for the minority community? We go back to his policies. Well, I mean, how is Trump a racist? How is that defining a racist?
Well, there are so many things that I've been critical on Trump on, so I'm going to be honest here. There is more to the HBCU thing than just, yes, he got more money in this particular action, but there was another action that kind of offset it. I'm not finding it right now. I'd have to go back and dig it up where it was. So I'm just going to say, at the moment, I can't find it. It's going to take me too long.
The reduction of black unemployment is a misleading number.
It's not even that. There was something else. Like, yes, it did one thing that made it look like he was increasing funds, but the other thing that wasn't really talked about by the conservatives kind of nuked the rest of it. So it was almost like a wash.
It was a money shift.
Well, what's the first step? No. The First Step Act reforms. Wait a second. The First Step Act reforms addressed inequities in sentencing laws that disproportionately harmed Black Americans and reformed mandatory minimums that created unfair outcomes. That's a fact. We all know that. I mean, that's one of the major issues. And Biden was against that.
I was talking about the HBCU. issue. But again, when was that passed?
2018.
First, let's right. Okay. So, first, let me just pull it up. Also, how many people
doing
overall...
a couple non-racist things doesn't negate racism, though.
Well, I'm just saying, though... I mean, I'm just saying that was the big talk, is he's the racist. He divides the country. I mean, and I just can't see that. Why would a president do these things if he's a racist? A racist is not going to do these things.
He called a Gold Star family a family of potential terrorists because they were from a Muslim country.
That doesn't define him as a racist. And so what if he wanted Muslims? He wanted to put restrictions on Muslims coming from countries that have supported and funded terrorism. Surely we would have to do a vetting process.
That's not what he campaigned on. What he campaigned on was a total and complete ban of Muslims entering this country.
Temporary ban, not permanent. Temporary
ban. Right, until we figure out what's going on. So, a indefinite ban, I think is a better way to put it. Until we figure out what's going on, who knows when we would figure out what's going on.
Well, that is one of the federal government's jobs.
If Donald Trump would have said, I want to implement a policy like President Obama did and stopping immigration from these countries that are supporting known terrorist activities around the world, I wouldn't have said a peep about it. I would have been like, hey, that's cool. I'm fine with that. Let's move on to the next subject.
So just because he said those countries were Muslim and Obama didn't makes him a racist.
No. It's not because it's not that. It's because he wanted to. It's because he wasn't pointing out those specific. He didn't say I want to ban Muslims. I want to ban people from entering this country from those Muslim-controlled from countries that are controlled by Muslims that are also supporting domestic terrorism. He said all Muslims, period. He didn't put any caveats on which country they were coming on. It could be a Muslim coming from England. It could be a Muslim coming from France. It could be a Muslim coming back from vacation who was an American citizen, because it wasn't, there was a concern that there was an American interpreter, I think, who was a Muslim person who wasn't a citizen, but he was a legal resident of the United States, who was not going to be let back into the country because of Trump's implemented policy. Even though because even the policy he implemented targeted people who shouldn't have been targeted. But when I criticize Trump, yes, I think while I do believe that Trump is a bigot and certain you can cherry pick actions that in a vacuum don't sound bigoted. That doesn't, again, as Demonox said, it doesn't eliminate the other actions that were bigoted. Like, for example, was it Kushner, his son-in-law, who he hired, basically was suggesting as a policy suggestion that we don't do anything about the COVID in the blue states and just allow those people to die off to give them an electoral advantage.
Can I get some actual data on racism, like numbers and dates?
Sure.
So 1973, Trump and his corporation were essentially, they found evidence that they were deliberately refusing to rent to black tenants, lied to black applicants about whether or not apartments were even available, and 1980s,
no, those apartments were in predominantly black neighborhoods, and he was refusing to rent to them, and they just happened to be black applicants. So therefore, if they refused to rent to those people in that particular neighborhood, because there were specific reasons why they could not rent to those tenants at that time, because the buildings had serious code violations, automatically they spin it to the fact that he's not renting black Americans, so therefore he's a racist.
1980, Kit Brown. 1989, the Central Park Five. 1991.
What about Central? What about Central Park 5?
I hate it. What?
What about the Central Park 5? Hang on. What do you mean? I don't know what happened there. What are you saying?
1989.
The two-page letter that Donald Trump wrote to the New York Times, complaining about the fact that the Central Park 5 were exonerated because he was insisting that they still must be guilty, despite the fact that that they were exonerated and they were found to be not guilty.
Well, I don't know the specifics of that one case, but I mean, I don't know.
1991, and quote from him, "Black guys counting my money, I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys that wear I can't pronounce that. Dan, you know the word. Yarmulkes every day. Oh, I just remembered it was spelled that way. Okay, I think that guy is lazy, and it's probably not his fault because his laziness is a trait in blacks. It really is.
And this is a quote that came from Donald Trump, you're saying. This is a quote that Donald Trump himself said, not a reporter that interpreted it. Okay. Well,
they literally quoted it. It's like, so he might just be the kind of person like, I don't like Kanye. Kanye says racist stuff and it's dangerous. Trump might have that weird thing where he has no brain to mouth filter, and maybe he doesn't intend or think about the stuff that he's saying, or maybe he doesn't perceive it to be racist or whatever. But the impact is the problem. And even if I pretended that a lot of these things were just, kind of off the cuff, or like as they excused his really derogatory sexual comments as locker room talk, when you campaign on it, when you make your policy dog whistling to things like going after the Mexicans coming over from Mexico, even if he's going, well, I'm going to make a policy that's going to make it harder for the bad people to come in and make it easier for the good people to come in, he campaigns on the fear that the bad people are coming from Mexico. He campaigns on the fear and the hatred of the Muslim people. And racism and bigotry are two different things. Bigotry is the belief, the personal hatred belief, or that's a bigotry. Racism is a system of oppression. It is the outcome. And by Donald Trump being a racist, it is because he is a person who is implementing racist policy. He's helping.
Whoa. Racist policy. Hang on. You just said it right there. Okay, well, that's aside from comments. You said implemented racist policies. What racist policies did he implement?
Racist policy can have anything to do with economic points to redlining, which, obviously redlining way before, but he did have a lot to do with realty. Huge thing in realty. So racist policy impacts not just government.
What policies, while as President of the United States of America, did he implement or try to implement that were racist?
Okay. So actually, weirdly enough, the Muslim ban, which keeps changing the name from, if you compare the countries that were banned to the country that he wanted to put the ban on, to the countries that the people were actually coming from, they were not the same. There was actually, and I wish I had the map in front of me right now, but there was a substantial difference of a number of countries that if he was actually concerned about terrorism, he would have banned them, but he didn't, and countries that were blocked that weren't. And I don't have the Google in front of me, but that's just one of them. Kids in cages, really screwed up. So when you come over the border and you're requesting amnesty, you have to be in the United States to be allowed to request that. It's part of our laws. But we're supposed to allow you in, see if you qualify, and then if you don't, then you go back. Preventing people from being allowed to cross in order to ask for amnesty is actually kind of against our laws. Based specifically on their country of origin. Like, we didn't have
the countries that Trump wanted to ban. You said you didn't have the map up. Hang on. You said you didn't have the ban up. He wanted to ban Muslims coming from Venezuela, and it wasn't just Muslims. It was all citizens coming from there at the time. And then there was a strenuous look and vetting process on Muslims. Okay, and that was Libya, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Somalia, and North Korea. I would say those countries, pretty much a lot of the leaders there don't like us, and they sponsor terrorism. So therefore, the people coming over there, from there, at the time, he had to put a temporary ban. Now, I know you called it a permanent ban, but surely nothing's permanent in America. I mean, everything can be looked at and reviewed.
Had refused to redesignate.
Well, I said it was indefinite. I said it was indefinite because there was no set time and place where it was going to end. It was just a hypothetical when we figure out what's going to go on.
Yeah. No, I understand. And don't forget, the Supreme Court upheld the administration's travel ban too, 5-4. So is the Supreme Court all racist too? I mean,
there's racist problems. Obviously, I mean, it raises. Everybody has their own internal racism. It's like every single person in the world, whether we want to admit it or not, we all have it. So yeah, there is some people just a lot more than others. The difference between the Trump's ban and previous bans were there was no redesignation. People were trapped. It was basically just rapidly thrown out there. The map was redrawn 3 different times. I believe it was the second or the third one that the Supreme Court upheld because the first 1 or 2 were just not good.
Well, let's look at some of these countries that he banned this. Hang on. The reason why he banned Syria, this was the reason the majority were Muslim, restriction most Syrian nationals will be barred from entering the U.S. Reason, failure to cooperate with the U.S., including public safety and terrorism-related information. I think that's a pretty good reason. That's just one country, Syria, right there. I mean, you're looking at national security. You're looking at the security and safety of this country, which is the president's job, one of the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, the federal government, actually.
Why is there a Mexican border for protect us from terrorism and drugs, but no Canadian border when most of the drugs come into the country from
how many cartels, how many Canadian cartels are there in Canada that are kidnapping people and beheading them and shipping tons of cocaine from the border of Canada? Do you know of any? Can you name any Canadian cartels?
Do you have to be a Canadian cartel in order to cross the Canadian border into America?
He asked me a reason. Why is there a ban on the Mexican border and not Canada? Well, like I said, because Canada doesn't have any cartels.
The majority of drugs come in through airports, not trucks.
No, I don't think
trucks.
so. I don't think so.
And even if the Biden administration has stopped more drugs from coming into this country than the Trump administration. That is a number.
Because more people are coming over the border, so there's going to be more stops and more seizures. If only 1,000 people come over the border during Trump's administration, but then 10,000 come over during Biden's, obviously there's going to be more arrests and more stoppage of
contraband. Is that really because there are
right?
more people coming over the border, or is it really because Trump? Look. Remember I wanted to get to this point, Andrew, so let's make this point now, because remember when Trump said to Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID because he basically, Trump always likes to sugarcoat things. He likes to whitewash them. Donald Trump doesn't want people to see like the real numbers because of how the quote optics will make him look. So he wanted to slow down testing because if you have more testing, you have more cases, even though there's just as many people. If you had 0 testing or everyone tested, there would be just the same amount of people who were sick. So why wouldn't I believe that Trump didn't act the same way on the border? Trump wouldn't necessarily want to stop as much drugs from coming across the border because then he'd have to report that more drugs were crossing the border. Trump's policies dealt more with dealing with the low-hanging fruit of like the people who were maybe here in violation of our border policies, but yet not doing anything else wrong. Like he was going out, oh look, I can get these people and kick them out, and I can get these people and kick them out, but that was his like, oh, this is for show. This is showing them that I'm doing all this stuff. But I don't believe for a second that Donald Trump wanted to stop more drugs from crossing the border, because if he stops more drugs from crossing the border and caught them, then he would have to report that, and then people would say, oh, we'll do what they're doing with Biden right now and saying, oh, well, Biden has stopped all these, so therefore it's confusing causation and correlation.
That's the same with the police report number, actually, that he just gave earlier.
Well,
about
I don't know if
crimes.
anybody, if you don't mind, I don't know if there's anybody on my end, on my platform right now that maybe want to ask a quick question of you. I'm not sure if there is. Put your hand up, guys, because I do have an open board here, or if there's I think there's a 914 number that might want to ask. I'm not sure if Joe is. Joe, are you out there, or if I don't know if my friend, the doctor.
I also have somebody else. I think I might have an idea of who this person is who's waiting on hold for about 12 minutes now. He might be my friend from Atlanta. Let me bring him on real quick and see if that's my friend from Atlanta. Am I right? Is that you?
I'm not from Atlanta. No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. There you go. Fine. Okay. Okay. Cool.
You can let them on if you want.
All right,
I mean,
so
if they want to
what's
ask a question. I mean, I don't know
So
who
what's
it
your
is.
name? Where you're from? What's your question?
My name's John. I'm from Connecticut. So I guess my question is, why do we have to fight so much about this stuff? My name's John. And let's be real. Like it's the holiday season. Can't we not just get along a little bit more?
I mean,
I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun.
I'm going to hang up. I'm hanging up because of the fact that there was a lot of feedback coming in, and I'm also very leery of accepting phone calls from people who I don't know.
Yeah.
Because there's the fact that the people who there
might have been a
people who
kicker
called
in there
who have dropped. There might have. I was expecting a N-word or C-word or something else that happened. Like the voice sounded very similar to some of the people that called him before. Anyway, but if it was a legitimate question, then fine. I mean, we are getting along. I mean, this is, I think, our best conversation that we've had, even though we disagree on everything almost. I think we're having a good, reasonable conversation. I mean, it's been good.
I agree.
I mean, we disagree, but it's been civil. It's been cordial. We clearly disagree on a lot, but we clearly disagree on a lot of policies. But I think we are getting along. And I'm more than welcome anybody on your side who wants to call in either number and say, hey, ask this question. I've been very bad at reading questions from my chat room because it's been scrolling and we've been talking. But I just kind of want to go back to the
give a shout out if you can. Give a shout out of your chat room and your number, please, for my listeners, if you don't mind, just so they can maybe connect. Because I don't know how much more time I got on my podcast show here, but before they start bouncing off my callers. But I do have a board here full, so if you want, I don't know if anyone's pressed 1 or they want to talk, interact with the Liberal Dan here, or have a question, do so politely. Or Dan, if you want to give your platform a quick shout out here on my platform, more than welcome to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, just a show reset, I guess. Liberal Dan Radio, Talks and Lots, that's right. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Central, blogtalkradio.com/Liberal Dan, or Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube. Support the show, patreon.com/Liberal Dan. Come subscribe to the channel, too. And do you have a YouTube channel, Joseph?
I don't actually right now. But it's Gibson Media that I do have on my podcast, and I'm actually a candidate here in North Carolina. I'll be running here in North Carolina in my district for the House of Representatives. The next coming, in the last primary I ran, I'll be running again as a Republican candidate. So here in Rockingham County, North Carolina.
All right. Well, there you go. But very cool. I ran for office too. I was not successful, but it happens. It is what it. Wait, I usually when I say it is what it is, I'll let Donald say it. So hold on.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald.
I'm a leftist liberal, so I'm going to fake vote for you. I promise you, I'm gonna break voting law and vote for you.
But let's go back to the whole Wood thing that was said, because I did want to bring this up. Do you think it was responsible for Donald Trump when Donald Trump said to Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID, i.e., he was basically saying to the public that it's fine, it's like the flu, but to Woodward he was like, this is terrible, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, it's horrible. Do you think that was responsible of him? Do you think that was him being a good leader?
The way he handled the whole COVID thing, I disagree with, and it's one of the things that I do disagree with his administration, the way he did handle it. So I have to agree with you on that. For one of the issues, he handled it all wrong. The whole entire COVID so-called scamdemic, I like to call it, because I don't want to get into a whole thing about the virus and the pandemic, but I believe that a lot of things were wrong. There's a lot of unanswered questions with the vaccination process. Wearing the face diaper that doesn't protect you. I think Fauci is a liar and he's a criminal, and probably should be brought up on charges for the lies that he told the American people. And the way Trump handled the pandemic, I agree with you. He handled it wrong.
Well, we agree that he handled it wrong. We disagree on the reasons why he handled it wrong. Now, with Fauci, a lot of times I find conservatives will say that Fauci lied because Fauci said one thing in April and then he said another thing in June and he said another thing in August. But that's how science works sometimes. As we learn more information about a particular thing, in April, in the letter that he wrote or the email that he wrote, he basically said he didn't see a purpose in wearing a cloth mask at this point in time. to prevent the spread. But in that letter, he also said that maybe an N95, or he didn't want the N95s used because he wanted that to be used for the people in like first responders. But he also did say that, perhaps wearing a cloth mask might help with the efficacy of preventing you from spreading it to other people. And then that changed later to we should be wearing a mask too. And a lot of times there's some misrepresentation of the masking policy or the masking recommendation. It was never really to defend the wearer from getting sick. There was some information that showed that there was some minor help with that, but it was always to help prevent the wearer from spreading it to other people. But like, with Trump, Trump said in Tulsa, where, he killed Herman Cain, well, I mean, it was a irresponsible thing to be holding and still in the middle of a pandemic, but he wanted to slow down testing. I think had we ramped up testing and we made a more aggressive testing policy where we went in and aggressively tested people to see where the virus was, where the hot spots were, we wouldn't have had to have done a massive shutdown nationwide of the country. We could have basically just done targeted shutdowns. Like, okay, the virus is in New Orleans and it's really bad in New Orleans, so we're going to shut down New Orleans for 2 weeks, and we'll financially help the people in New Orleans for those 2 weeks. Okay, well now the virus is, but the virus has slowed down and the spread has been slowed down to a point where it's safe to go back out in these other areas, so we don't have to shut down as long. I think the shutdowns would have been shorter, would have been more targeted, would have had a less of a harmful impact on the economy while being more effective in preventing the disease. But Trump didn't want, and this is like, if you ignore all of the things that I believe that he did, that he has done in his entirety of his lifetime that are bigoted or racist or whatever, if you ignore all those things, I think his failures in COVID should have been in and of itself enough to say that he shouldn't have been reelected. I mean, just ignoring everything else, his COVID response to me is why he should never have been reelected.
Well, like you said, the COVID thing was a new thing, and nobody saw that coming. And again, I don't want to get into a big COVID discussion because I think it'll take away from the Democrat-Republican policy failures that I really wanted to discuss. But I agree he handled it wrong, but again, I don't think that should be the highlight of his presidency, why he should be not run again or should have been impeached. I mean, again, he had advisors around him that were advising him wrongly. Fauci was one of them. I believe that there's a lot about this. I call it the scamdemic. I mean, again, a lot of stuff has happened with this thing that has to be investigated, and there should be a lot of people held accountable for the way it was handled and what did happen and what actually is happening still today with the vaccines and the lack of transparency and knowledge that's out there, and really who is responsible for this? Was this a virus that was released by China or some lab in China? Or what happened? Let's get to the bottom of this. There's so many unanswered questions, and we're certainly not getting the truth from CNN or Fox News. So there's so much disinformation out there too, so you have to be careful. Is there a virus out there that makes people sick? I guess the evidence out there, yes, but are the numbers true? Of course not. The numbers are a lie. I mean, there's so much evidence out there that proves that it is. And why is it a lie then? Why are they lying about the numbers? So we have to get to the bottom of it. I mean, let's get to the facts here because people's lives are at stake. I mean, don't you agree with that?
I mean, well, people's lives are at stake, and sure, I'm fine with looking into everything. I don't necessarily doubt. I think the numbers are probably too low than too high because there are people who caught this before it was even like when we thought we had 13 people who were sick. There was more people who had it. I probably had it in January of 2020. They just didn't know how to test for it. All my doctor said was you have a virus that's not the flu. Now let me just say real quick, area code 917. If you're in my YouTube chat, please go ahead and put that you're from area code 917 so I can know whether or not I'm going to accept your call or not, to make sure you're a safe person to pick up or not. Anyway, again, I don't believe it was a scamdemic. I mean, I was sick with it. It was terrible when I was sick with it. I felt horrible, and I had a long cough afterwards because there was no treatments for me at the time, and then the next time I got it, there was treatments, and it was wonderful. I got healthy much more quickly because the Paxlovid, even though it put a horrible taste in my mouth, it absolutely helped kick COVID's ass in my system. And not only did I get better quickly, I also didn't have the same lingering cough as I usually do after respiratory infection. So, does that make it a scam? I mean, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just to say, like, I know we're going to the COVID thing. You didn't really want it too much, but I actually have a policy question that's kind of a throwback to an earlier comment that I am horrible with names and I forget your names, but the media guy said, but about the police. Jason, okay, policy thing about the police increasing crime during the Biden administration. And let me preface this is a very, very, very short story. When I went to high school, we had people smoking in class. They appointed somebody to catch the students smoking, and suddenly we had more and more tickets. We give it in Sudbury, rich town. They handed out $100 tickets to students. Ridiculous, but it was to make a point. Nobody paid them. And they issued so many tickets that it got noticed and got really bad attention. The local newspaper was like, look how many kids are smoking in this school. The numbers jumped up astronomically. They actually fired the guy because he was doing his job too well. Do you think that the increase in police violence is an actual increase in event, or do you think it is an increase in reporting / accountability, or a combination of the two? I think it's a combination of the two, as tensions with the police and the public have gotten escalated, rising higher and higher. But I also think the additional attention the public is getting, combined with the crackdown as new policy gets made, is going to lead to a higher number of incidents reporting. But I was just wondering what you think.
To answer your question, I think it's of the two. But at the same time, the policy, you keep saying policy. Look, the police are out there to keep the peace. That's what their job is. They're not should be out there policy enforcing. We need less police in our lives, interacting with our lives in a negative way like they do, okay? Like I said, with the prison situation, getting tough on crime don't work. And the Democrats' way of doing it is clearly not the way. Defund the police, that's completely an asinine, excuse my language, way of looking at things, to defund the police and put social workers out there to handle situations like domestic calls and whatnot. Look, I put on a uniform as a security officer, and I can tell you right now, this attitude that the general public has in some areas of where I do security at shopping plazas and whatnot, the attitude that they have by viewing me wearing a uniform is despicable. Automatically a negative, or that sir, you can't park there, it's a handicapped spot, why don't you leave me alone, you get that attitude. So I can see the police, they're up against a very tough general public out there that has a negative perception about them. Are there bad apples? There's bad apples in every single profession across America. Farmers, there's bad apples. Police, there's bad apples everywhere. So what do? We're going to categorize the entire police force around this country right now that they're all bad and they're all racist and they're all shooting black people. That's false. That's the media's perception, and that's wrong. I mean, these neighborhoods that have no jobs. What's that?
Oh, no, I said absolutely. I agree on that aspect. I was going to say, I think the biggest racial problem that police have isn't necessarily that they start off that way, so much as if you look at a lot of the training programs that they have, and there's these private companies, like I forget what they call it, like Shield Heroes or something like that. There's a lot of things that they're trained to be trained in fear. If you've ever watched the videos of police fainting over what they're told is fentanyl, but it's not actually fentanyl, but they're passing out, and yeah, people are laughing at it, but they have been put to a point where they are so afraid that they are having adverse reactions and passing out because their training is that intense. And I think that the increase in violence and the increase of paranoia, it's not necessarily that an officer starts off bad. There's an element of, if you're the one conservative in a very liberal workplace, you're going to start becoming slightly more liberal. If you're the one liberal in a conservative workplace, you're going to start becoming slightly more conservative. And I think the problem is the historical us versus them police mentality culture, combined with these these training things that like really want to go like gung ho hoorah type attitude. And I know a couple people that are cops, and my cousin's a cop, and I give him heck for it all the time. Because he's my cousin, I'm allowed to. But there is a lot of there's a lot of impact, and I think that's where big policy change needs to happen, is bringing it away from an us versus them, because I think the public's trust has been broken, and that's why we're getting a lot of exposure to bad things happening.
The confliction, the conflictive thing with policy, the Constitution. If we obey the Constitution, we got nothing to worry about. All these, policy enforcers, that's not what the police job. Yeah, and if they're trained to go gun-ho out there and start pulling people over, harassing people, and profiling people, that's wrong. I agree with you 100%, and that can create tension and unnecessary tension. And I'm all for the general public against a police force that acts like that because look, we are their bosses, but we don't go around there saying, hey, I'm your boss, do this. No, but we have to have a mutual respect and understanding, and if we obey the Constitution, we can't go wrong. And like I said, they should be peacekeepers, keep the peace, not policy enforcers.
But here's also the thing about the bad apple comment. I was sitting on this for a little bit, but about the bad apple comment, it's not the problem is not just the people that use deadly force when they're not supposed to. It's not the people who fire how many bullets into somebody when only a certain amount would have been needed. It's about the other people who will use that whole thin blue line argument to protect the bad cops. Like there was a case where there was a woman police officer, I forget what city it was. She tried to do the right thing by turning in one of her fellow police officers for doing something that was bad. She got kicked out of the department because they couldn't quote trust her anymore because she was, she violated the whole thin blue line thing. I agree. There are other cases where you have when you had Laquan McDonald, and the reason I remember his name so easily is because he was shot outside of Burger King by the cops. And the first thing that the police officers tried to do when they got there to the scene was not to ascertain was it a good shooting or not, but it was to try and confiscate all of the video from some of the surrounding establishments to make sure that there was no video available to indict their police officer. That's
tyranny.
They were their first, right? And what's the other one? There was the one case in, I think it was New Jersey, and I forget this individual's name. The only reason he got off was because of a second vehicular dash cam, because the cop was arguing, stop grabbing for my gun, stop grabbing for my gun, stop grabbing for my gun. And so he was arrested for trying to grab the gun and trying to assault the police officer, then for resisting arrest. Well, it turns out the second police car came and the dash cam showed that he was doing nothing of the sort. There was no attempts to grab for the gun. And I was convinced before this happened. I was convinced after this happened. And then somebody else called in my podcast. I've talked to two people. Somebody else that I know is a police officer locally in the New Orleans metropolitan area, and also somebody else who called in from Florida who confirmed that police officers, non-officially, but they will tell the people who are cops as they're coming up and and learning how to be a quote good cop, to always shout, stop reaching for my weapon, stop reaching for my weapon, even if there's no evidence that they're reaching for the weapon, because it gives plausible deniability when it comes to a trial. And they say, oh, well, he thought he was reaching for his gun. He is clearly shouting, stop reaching for my gun, so the use of deadly force must have been okay because he was trying to prevent himself and other people from being shot, when in reality, they're just yelling that to cover their own asses. And it does sound like you agree on the fact that those things that I've just listed are terrible, are examples of bad policing. But see, it's not just a few bad apples who are doing the violence. It's an entire systemic problem that's protecting the bad cops as well.
I agree, and the qualified immunity thing, I don't agree with that. You know, they should not have immunity for everything. Look, you break the law, you violate the Constitution. That's it. You're in trouble. Just because you wear a badge does not give you special privileges to do anything. Now, I do believe that we should respect the police officers out there. I don't even like to call them law enforcement because I just don't like that, because enforce. You know, that the attitude of they're in charge. That's not, you know, we the people are in charge. But we also, with liberty, comes responsibility and accountability. We have responsibility as citizens with our liberty. Doesn't mean we go around, you know, disrespecting police officers because they wear a badge. And like I was telling you, I wear a uniform. That attitude, and I see that, and then it creates a confrontation, you know. And I have to, and me being responsible, wearing that uniform, I have to take the better step of trying to de-escalate it and walk away. But at the same time, where do you draw that line? What happens when a confrontation comes about? You know, now it's the public versus the guy in the uniform. So yeah, it's a bad situation. You know, that's why education is key. And again, you have to look at all the surrounding elements of why something is happening. If you have 100 people hanging around on a street corner doing nothing on a Monday night, you know, why aren't they getting up to get ready to go to work the next morning? You know, then again, what's wrong with hanging around on a Monday night? You know, isn't this America free to do what you want? You know, so you got to look at it. You know, it's a complicated situation. These are answers and questions we have to ask ourselves within our own communities. You know, why are we not getting up for work the next week? Because there's no jobs in the community. There's nothing to do. So what are they out doing? They're out hustling or gang banging or doing whatever they're doing. So it has to be addressed. You know, and the policies of the Democrats across the cities of America and this country do not work. The 10 most violent cities in this country have been the 10 most violent cities in this country because of Democratic policies for years and years and years that don't work. But blacks and minorities vote 90% of the time Democrat. Why? Why not vote for who's right for the job?
Okay. Well,
you know, I just disagree with that.
Let me tackle that second part first. Because, well, first of all, I think sometimes people cringe when you say blacks instead of black people. So there's that. But, you know, there's probably a perception, first of all, on the first part, that it's not the government policy that's affecting or that's causing the crime, that it's more of the fact that these are people who are going to commit crimes regardless of who's in power. And that may or may not be true. I don't know. But there are more issues than just crime that affect people that are going to make people say, oh, well, I'm not going to vote for Republicans. I'm going to vote for Democrats. You go way back to 2000. The year in 2000, in that election, Florida cast a wide net and disenfranchised many voters, majority of whom were black voters, because they were supposedly voters that weren't supposed to vote, but they didn't exactly match. Like, okay, well, this person is a former felon, so therefore we're not going to allow this individual person. They basically banned a lot of people or kicked a lot of people off the voter rolls without any notification, without anything, and the vast majority of them were black, and so that had a disproportionate effect, and that could have led to the difference in the Florida election, which could have swung the federal election overall. You have circumstances like in North Carolina, this so-called voter ID bill, which had more information in it. Oh, somebody sent me a goodie. Thank you, Aaron, for buying me cider. The North Carolina law that was so-called had, you know, voter ID laws labeled that because it's easy, because people love to make the argument, what's wrong with acquiring a voter ID? Nothing. Although voter IDs don't stop most election fraud that's out there, but there are other items in these laws that have nothing to do with showing a voter ID as part of those laws that are included specifically to disenfranchised voters, and typically those voters that are targeted are black voters. The North Carolina example, the reason the North Carolina law was ultimately thrown out was because when they went to eliminate different types of voting that they used to have in the state, what the legislator did was they looked at all of the different ways that people voted in the state, and then eliminated only those that were utilized mostly by black people. So that's targeting black voters with surgical precision, as the judge stated in that case, is what caused that law to be overthrown. When the ridiculous Supreme Court ruling that overturned part of the Voting Rights Act, that basically said, oh, well, these basically it was akin to us in New Orleans saying, well, that we haven't flooded from the Mississippi River, so we no longer need the levees. These, as soon as those provisions were, the preclearance part was removed, the states immediately ran to start trying to pass these laws that were meant to disenfranchise voters. You had the Georgia SB 202. Part of that rule, part of that law that was implemented was a ban on handing out bottled water to people in line to vote. Now, if I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and my wife was waiting in line and I wanted to bring her a bottle of water, I would not be able to do so, or else I would be committing a crime. And that in and of itself, you're going to say, well, that's not racist because it affects everybody. But the implementation of it is that in Atlanta, or in Georgia as a whole, the white districts tend to be less populated, so there are less lines at the voting precincts. Meanwhile, the districts in the more urban areas, which tend to have majority black populations, those lines tend to be much longer, and as such, these people are going to wait longer in line. And so the goal is to make it much less comfortable to be in line in the first place, so that it works to help disenfranchise the vote. So you ask why black people will 90% plus vote for the Democratic Party. It's because you're not seeing a targeted attempt by the Democratic Party to try and disenfranchise black voters. You're seeing that coming from the Republican Party, and you'll have people who are officials in the Republican Party admitting that that's what they're doing. They're admitting, they say, if more people vote, we lose. They're saying if we have higher black turnout, we lose. So instead of changing their arguments to try and win over more people, or at least trying to make an argument in such a way that would attract more people to vote for the Republicans, say this is why our policy positions are good for the black community, they just say, oh, it's easier for us to try and stop them from voting, to try and disenfranchise them. And then they see that and be like, well, we're not going to vote for you. They could make a conservative mayoral candidate or a gubernatorial candidate could make the best argument in the world and say, this is the golden ticket on how we're going to end crime in your community, and the deaths of black people or all people are going to plummet once we implement these. Here's the empirical evidence to show it. But they're going to say, oh, yeah, but you were trying to stop us from voting, so therefore we're not going to support you. But I don't believe that any conservative mayoral candidate has that magic potion, has that magic formula that's going to end crime either. They just have other bad ideas that are not going to solve the problem, that are instead just probably going to make it worse. And that's another reason why they're not going to vote for them, because they see what conservative policies do in many areas, and why would they then believe that conservative policies on crime are going to be any better for them?
Well, again, you brought up a lot there. The policies hurting black communities. Well, let me ask you a question. Where are all the abortion clinics in here, for instance, here in North Carolina? Most of them are in the cities where the black population is higher.
I was going to bring up
stores?
abortion, and I was going to bring that up, by the way. I was going to bring up the bad argument about abortion, but go ahead. I'll deal with that in a second. I was anticipating that, but I decided, no, he's not going to go there. You went there. So go ahead, and I'll rebut.
All right. Well, you have where's all the liquor stores in the black communities? You don't. Again, so that's obviously they're targeting a population there. Policy. Why is that? Wouldn't that make you angry? I mean, if the roles were reversed, it would make me angry. Well, why is that? You're killing my people. So I mean, I disagree with that. So again, the policies of the Democrats and in the cities and their ideologies are hurting the blacks and Hispanic communities across America. I mean, the number of the policies. But I started with abortion, so if you want to go ahead and tackle that, go ahead. I'll let you go.
Okay. I understand why conservatives make the argument about abortion. I haven't quite heard the liquor store one as well, but but it's the same kind of premise. I understand why y'all make that argument. It's because y'all believe in supply side economics. You know, if you build it, they will come. The reason that these clinics will, like